high-stakes bid to ratchet down a war raging for nearly 6 months.
The gathering, held far from the front lines in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv, near the Polish border, marked the first visit to Ukraine by Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan since the outbreak of the war, and the second by UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Erdogan has positioned himself as a go-between in efforts to stop the fighting. Harry Michaels reporting.
Violent thunderstorms and hurricane-force winds left at least 8 people dead in France and Italy on Thursday.
The storm produced gusts of more than 136 miles per hour in some areas, the National Weather Agency Meteo France said. About 45,000 households were without power on Corsica. Dozens of people were injured and 12 were hospitalized in Corsica, one in critical condition, authorities said. Libby St. James reporting.
New coronavirus cases reported globally dropped nearly a quarter in the last week, while deaths fell 6%, but were still higher in parts of Asia.
The UN Health Agency said there were 5.4 million new COVID-19 cases reported last week, a decline of 24% from the previous week. Infections fell everywhere in the world, including by nearly 40% in Africa and Europe, and by a third in the Middle East. COVID deaths rose in the Western Pacific and Southeast Asia by 31% and 12% respectively, but fell or remained stable everywhere else. Roger Cantor reporting.
Walmart, CVS, and Walgreens must pay a combined $650.6 million to 2 Ohio counties for damages related to the opioid crisis, a federal judge ruled this week.
U.S. District Judge Dan Aaron Polster ruled that over the next 15 years, approximately $306.2 million must be paid to Lake County and approximately $344.4 million must be paid to Trumbull County. All 3 companies were found liable for their role in the opioid epidemic in both Lake and Trumbull counties last November. Davis Richards reporting.
This is the latest news headlines. The former chief financial officer of the Trump Organization pleaded guilty Thursday to a 15-year tax fraud scheme, but he did not enter into a cooperation agreement to aid New York prosecutors in their criminal investigation of the real estate company's finances, a person familiar with the matter said. Under the terms of the agreement, Weisselberg would receive a 5-month prison sentence, but would serve about 100 days behind bars, the person said. Weisselberg faced up to 15 years in prison. Abortions in North Carolina are no longer legal after 20 weeks of pregnancy, a federal judge ruled Wednesday, eroding protections in one of the South's few remaining safe havens for reproductive freedom. U.S. District Judge William Osteen reinstated an unenforced 20-week abortion ban, with exceptions for urgent medical emergencies, after he said the June U.S. Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade erased the legal foundation for his 2019 ruling that placed an injunction on the 1973 state law. 2 former Pennsylvania judges who orchestrated a scheme to send children to for-profit jails in exchange for kickbacks were ordered to pay more than $200 million to hundreds of people they victimized in one of the worst judicial scandals in U.S. history. U.S. District Judge Christopher Connor awarded $106 million in compensatory damages and $100 million in punitive damages to nearly 300 people in a long-running civil lawsuit against the judges, writing the plaintiffs are the tragic human casualties of a scandal of epic proportions. A spacewalk was cut short just a few hours into what was intended to be a nearly 7-hour spacewalk after a Russian cosmonaut was repeatedly ordered to drop what he was working on and return to the International Space Station's airlock because...
I'm Rich Rosario. 1 in 4 heart attack survivors will have another cardiovascular event. Award-winning author and American Heart Association volunteer Dr. Nisa Goldberg explains the hidden risks.
Many people don't realize that managing hidden risks like untreated high blood pressure, unhealthy eating habits, and poor medication adherence may reduce your risk for having another heart attack.
The American Heart Association's Secondary Heart Attack Prevention Initiative, sponsored by Bayer, reminds you to follow your doctor's recommendations to help reduce your risk factors.
Take your medication as prescribed. Certain medicines like aspirin can lower your risk of another cardiac event. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. It's important to understand your medications and take them correctly. Manage risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Quit smoking, eat healthier, and get active.
Learn more ways to thrive after a heart attack at heart.org/oneisenough.
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Lone Star Transfer. If you are a timeshare owner, getting out is probably a top priority. And now that annual maintenance fees are coming due, this ongoing burden and expense is at the top of your list. Thankfully, we can help. Let us do for you what we have done for thousands of others across the country. Our process is done legally, ethically, and quickly. Lone Star Transfer has a 99% success rate and an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. We are a family-owned business and will personally make sure your experience is a pleasant one. Don't let another day go by with maintenance fees taking your hard-earned money. Give us a call for a no-obligation consultation at 844-284-4863. That's 844-284-4863 or online at lonestartransfer.com. That's lonestartransfer.com.
Is the Jeff Santos Show on the Revolution Radio Network. Rebuilding America, together, investing, activism, and supporting the middle class. Now, here's Jeff.
Thank you, Freddie, and good afternoon, Americans, and welcome to the Jeff Santos Show. It is great to be with you on this Friday edition. We are closer to the weekend. Yippee-yi-yay. It's great to be with you today, folks. We have a fantastic show today. Some of our favorites all combined into one program. Usually on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, we talk with our good friend Larry Cohen, formerly the chair of the Bernie Sanders 2016 campaign for president, formerly, of course, the great president of Communication Workers of America, now the chair of our revolution, will join us today at 3:30 to start us off in what looks like a fabulous progressive bonanza of a show. We're going to talk with Professor Harvey Kane, his usual time slot. Of course, he's also an FDR author, the co-sponsor, launcher of the Economic Bill of Rights, along with Alan Minsky, who joins us on Mondays, by the way, for those of you looking at the Jeff Santos Show schedule, coming up at 5 p.m. on Mondays, is Minsky, a Minsky Monday after all. Harvey will be with us, of course, the great FDR author, Thomas Paine author as well, at 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. At 5 p.m., Alan Grayson, once again, a good chance that he could become a member of Congress. Boy, we need that desperately in the House. He could be a great member of the Progressive Caucus, join Ms. Jayapal, and Alan Grayson has some teeth. Yes, he has the ability to fight back, which we need, fighting peacefully, of course. And he has that. He will join us at 5 o'clock today. He's running in a congressional election on Tuesday in the primary. If he wins, he's got a pretty good clear sailing as a Democratic district. It's one of his old districts. He's had about 3 of them. He's represented Orlando in 2 different districts, as had our good friend Alan Grayson. Then coming up, as he usually is, he is the cherry on top of our week shows. That is WEEK, of course. Mark Taylor Canfield, our Renaissance man. He's the executive director of Democracy Watch News. Check them out there. He's also a great musician. He will give you the information where to check out his videos on YouTube. It is always a pleasure to end our week with our good friend MTC from the 206 all the way across Interstate 90 from not far from we are in Boston, across the country to Seattle, WA. We look forward to that. The phone number to join us, 833-545-5333. You can, of course, email me, Jeff at revolutionboston.com, post on Facebook and Twitter at Jeff Santos Show. I'm going to steal a tweet that our good friend Mark from San Francisco had mentioned to me and texted me earlier today. And I tell you, it fits perfectly well where I'm trying to go, both in the first segment with Larry and throughout, I think, the entire show. And that is that, if Democrats, progressives, if Jayapal and the Progressive Caucus, if our good friends Bernie and the AOC and the squad want to get their agenda done, they're going to have to work with the more centrist wing of the Democratic Party, the more corporate wing, which is much sometimes it makes you want to puke, We have to do it if we want to get things done. And an example where things were done in this IRA bill, no, not the Irish Republican Army, no, not your individual retirement account, but Inflation Reduction Act. So it is important, if we want to see these things through, to kind of work together. And why is it important? Well, let me just say this. It is critically important that we understand who we're up against. This is not sort of the Nelson Rockefeller Republican Party. It's not even the Richard Nixon Republican Party. This is a racist, fascist-like, xenophobic, homophobic party that has no concern for those who are people of color, people who are LGBTQ, folks who are Latino. I mean, all of this, from day one when Trump, a lot of this started back in 16 or late 15 when he announced for president. When he went down that golden stairway escalator of his at the Trump Tower, he right away began touting the racist, xenophobic stuff about Mexicans, and that they're rapists and killers, and Mexico isn't sending their best over here. What do you expect? And that started it. And people have picked up on it and picked up on it. And now with what happened with the search at Mar-a-Lago, what ends up happening is that now FBI agents have to look at their backs because people are trying to bring and kill them, bring in cache of weapons that was found in just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. So if you think about it, folks, we're at a point now where we need to think about how to contrast with the Republican Party. And it's better to use our words than sort of the more centrist, timid, always afraid of their own shadow, centrist Democrats who always will do a half measure. But this is from Francis Maxwell, a good friend, and had this from Mark in San Francisco. He said, the pro-life Republican Party have now voted against the following: cheaper insulin, cheaper baby formula, health care for veterans, common sense gun safety, stopping gas gouging, protecting gay marriage, access to contraception, and you can go on. As the author, both sides are not the same. That is so true. They are not the same. So whatever quibbling we do on our side, and we get a lot of it because there's a lot of corporate Dems that want to see status quo, because in their world, in their lives, if you're making $500,000 from all the different leadership roles in the Democratic Party, plus you have campaign dollars up the kazoo, particularly if you're Schumer and Pelosi and you had the Senate chairmanship and the Speaker of the House, you get a lot of money. And those in the leadership, they've been in it for a long time, Clyburn, Hoyer, and so forth. It's a nice payday. That being said, that is how we got to get things done. And we have to work with it. So what I'm trying to say is that think about what these Republicans have done just in the Congress. Never mind this Trump. We all know about his antics, January 6th and so forth. But I want to make it clear that going forward, and Larry and I will address this because we only have a couple of primaries left, I believe in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and a couple of other places that have still primaries to go. And there are still some progressives running this. Siegel in Rhode Island is one that we're watching for Congress. It's an open seat. Langevin left will leave his seat. My hope here is that, it's that old Beatles song, "Come Together Over Me." Well, not so much me, Jeff Santos, but me, working class Americans, period, regardless of how much money you make. And that's where we need to think about, because really, folks, fascism may sound like a word from the 1930s and reminds you of Hitler. Yesterday, our good friend John Shelton, who, by the way, will be with us breaking news here, will be with us on Fridays. Mentioned yesterday, the Weimar Republic. And, God help us if that's where we're going. But we're going to have to nip this in the bud. And people who have normally sat home for congressional elections, like, yeah, whatever, I just voted in the presidential. I got too many things to do. No, you don't have too many things to do this November or October. In some places, there is actually such a thing as early voting. It happens here in Massachusetts, but a lot of other places have. And I think Florida right now, I have a friend down there who's actually volunteering to do the early voting. So he's down there and checking people and so forth. They may actually pay you a couple of bucks just to sit there, make sure that the ballots are being put in the right place and so forth. We all know about that kind of stuff. Yes, indeed. So, and it's important, folks. And I criticize the president, President Biden, for a lack of messaging strategy, and we will do that today, of course. But, I'm on his side. He's on my side. There are a lot of good people that work for him. We've mentioned their names before, whether we're talking about Secretary of Labor Marnie Walsh, who's been on this show, and hopefully over the next week or two will be on the program. Xavier Becerra, several years ago appeared on the show when he was a representative from the great state of California. That's just a couple of cabinet secretaries. There are people like Jared Bernstein, Heather Boucher, that are part of the economic team. So there are some good people there. There's some people that I'd rather not have there either. We all talked about Bruce Reed, former Clinton guy. There are a number of people that are in that administration that I'm not overwhelmed with. But it is what we have. What did the great football coach Bill Parcells once say about his, I think, 8-8 New England Patriots? We are who we are. Our record is what our record says it is. So, again, would we have preferred, quasi John Kennedy meets Bernie Sanders meets Sean Penn in his heyday as a candidate to go out there and get people stirred up, throw in Reverend Jesse Jackson, young Obama, and so forth? Martin Luther King, sure. But that person doesn't exist. And frankly, in my view, we need to sort of push Joe Biden as we have. Again, think about what was passed, what Biden signed the other day. And think about, since 2015, how far the Democratic Party has moved to the left. And it's one guy with a whole slew of volunteers and staff, that's Bernie Sanders in 2015, that has moved this party starting over here and then moved it all the way to the left. Of course, it's the opposite way, but you know what I mean. I feel like we cut a bumpy road ahead because there's still people putting obstacles in front of progressives. Andy Levin, which to me is just stupid. There's a Jewish American and AIPAC and Republican led think tanks or PACs go after Andy Levin. His father, Samuel Levin, a member of Congress, great with the Jewish community, great with the African American community, great with the labor community. Carl Levin, the great senator, I've interviewed him many times as well, working as a Capitol Hill correspondent many years ago. All of these things. And they go after him. And they go after the young Jessica Cisneros for Henry Cuellar. For what are we doing? As Jerry Austin, who doesn't have any horses in this race, you take a 70-year-old versus a 30-year-old in Jessica Cisneros. Get a guy who, after Uvalde, had the highest rating of any Democrat in the region, Texas, of taking money from the NRA. A rating, pro-life. A good friend, Tom from Los Angeles, talks about the pro-death party. Well, yeah. think Mr. Cuellar probably would like to belong to that. With gun violence. And of course, we saw what happened to Indian Turner, who we had on yesterday. We'll have on again, by the way. It was sort of a last second putting it together. We only had a few minutes with her. But we'll give her some time to talk about what happened to her. She now is several months removed from that race. 2 races, by the way. So there are things to look forward to, and there are a lot of problems. Again, it's not going to be a straight line by any stretch. But I think for us to go into a fetal position, to say, oh, the Biden administration sucks, oh, the Democratic Party is corrupt, as bad as Republicans. No, they're not bad at Republicans. The whole Republican Party has been bought and paid for decades, not just the last few years, not just when Donald Trump arrived on the scene. They don't care. There's a great line from Tommy Lee Jones and talking to Harrison Ford in The Fugitive back in the early 90s. Great flick. If you have some time over the weekend, you want to check it out. It's got some great scenes, great lines. And one of the lines is Tommy Lee Jones, his character was fantastic. And he played a U.S. attorney, a state attorney there in Illinois. And he would go to Harrison Ford. He goes, I don't care. I don't care. Well, it's a different kind of meaning in the movie. But the Republicans, truthfully, that's their mantra. They don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about anybody unless you're part of the 1 or 2%, and you can put oodles of thousands of, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions sometimes, into their campaigns. That's who they are. That's what they care about. All right, let's open up the phones. The phone number to join us, of course, 833-545-5333. And open the phones. We'll start with our good friend John in Minnesota. John, what's on your mind this afternoon?
Party are so off the rails that they
John?
literally do not believe in. Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead, John.
Hello.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Yeah. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, okay. Yeah, they're just so far off the rails that. I'm on. Can you hear me? Yeah,
I can indeed.
Hello?
Go right ahead, John. Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, they're just so far off the rails. And Bernie was a breath of fresh air that really invigorated politics in this country, and it was a source of hope for a lot of ordinary people, which is the bulk of the population. And the Republicans are the party of hate. They're the party of people who, have given up on democracy essentially and believe in, totalitarian rule. And we're going to shove this down the rest of the population. Thank you again. Sorry, but too bad. We're going to give you Medicare for some. We're going to be, as Mark said, the pro-death party. Well, or Tom, I mean, it is a pro-death party, and it's also an incredibly hypocritical party. Hypocrisy is their, trade name, essentially, and they don't care. They will just change you can't hold them to absolutely anything. It's like a nightmare come true in terms of rhetoric, and they gaslight the entire population of this country. And people just give up. They become despondent or they join them. That's exactly what they want, But, we're a lot stronger than Weimar. And, a lot of people aren't going to stand for it, even if they do win in 24. We're not going to stand for this essentially violent takeover of our entire democracy. And, either Wall Street can join the rest of the population, or they can just sit and count their money. But, and eventually it's going to catch up with them too. They're not going to like it either. and it
what is
really isn't
interesting,
going
John,
to benefit them. Yeah, go ahead.
one of the things that I think is interesting is that I think a lot of people, and I include now that's in the business community, they see what Trump is all about. They see what January 6th produced. They saw what the hearings have produced on January 6th. And now they're seeing what's happening after the Mar-a-Lago surge, with people going after FBI agents. At some point, people start saying, look, my husband works for the FBI. My son or brother or sister or next door neighbor works for the FBI. Well, I don't want some lunatic going after and killing them. They're doing what their job is, to investigate the former president, who obviously wanted to lead the charge like he's some kind of Julius Caesar, attempting a coup in the U.S. Capitol. So, I mean, I think people are waking up now. Whether or not that reflects itself in November, John. We got a lot of problems with the voting systems in this country, as you well know. But I think people are at a wit's end. They want no part of this. And I shared this with a friend of mine the other day. I recently went to a doctor's appointment and talking to one of the receptionists at the office, and I was mentioning about Biden, Trump, and so forth. And he says, this January 6th thing, this is bad stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And people who are just not really very political are now sort of, I think, coming out of their their holes, if you might. So that's a good thing, I guess. I hope.
I hope so too. But I do, I do think that things are really changing, and we just, we have to plod on. We have to continue on. Why? I'm not going to turn the keys of this country over to, a bunch of violent, aggressive, so-called populists that, literally would like to see you dead. I mean, they are hateful. You listen to their rhetoric, and it's encouraged by Donald Trump. It's encouraged by Tucker Carlson, by Viktor Orban, these other dictators that they invite here, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Bobart and the whole lot of them. They don't care to make anything work in this. Yeah.
They want to see anything work.
We need to have a clean environment. We need to have Medicare for all. These are the things that people depend on. They depend on Medicare.
Yeah, if you
they
can't
depend
breathe
on
the
Social
air
Security
or drink the water, and if you can't, take care of yourself because you're going to go bankrupt with healthcare today, then might as well just forget about it all, because that's human needs. It's that simple. Hey, John, I got to run, my friend. Thank you. We will talk to you a little bit.
You're welcome.
Talk to you a little bit later.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, let's go to our good friend Mark. I get about 60 seconds. Mark, go right ahead, my man.
Yeah, Jeff, I think it's to the point now with these Republicans, we ought to start looking at suing them. If somebody gets killed because of their rhetoric, we should basically go after them and sue them. I mean, they're causing people to be scared to be poll workers, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, our government agencies, people that work for the government are under attack.
You're right, and
it's
this
insanity.
is going to be very interesting to see how these early voting states, what happens, and particularly in southern states, where Republicans have control of the levers of voting. That's going to be really important to make sure we can make sure that every vote counts. Mark, we'll talk to you a little bit later. I know you want to have a chance to talk to your fellow labor leader, Mr. Larry Cohen, too. We'll be right back. Larry Cohen is indeed next. You are tuned in to the Jeff Santos Show. Back in a flash.
Baby, don't you Jeff Santos Show is brought to you by Mass Peace Action. With over 9,000 supporters in the state, MPA uses the power of grassroots organizing to end war, create a more just foreign policy, and cut wasteful Pentagon spending to support the needs of the American people, like healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the environment. 20 years of war is long enough. To become a member or learn more, visit masspeaceaction.org. Don't wish for peace, work for it.
Haul packages for a living? A gas-powered Mercedes-Benz Sprinter delivers. Transport people? A Sprinter van with 0% financing is a 5-star idea. If food delivery is your thing, then a gas Sprinter caters to you. And if you're a general contractor, the Sprinter with 0% financing nails it. With innovation, safety, and technology, Sprinter is built for you. And it's built for your bottom line with 0% financing. The Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, starting at just $33,790.
I'm Rich Rosario. 1 in 4 heart attack survivors will have another cardiovascular event. Award-winning author and American Heart Association volunteer Dr. Nisa Goldberg explains the hidden risks.
Many people don't realize that managing hidden risks like untreated high blood pressure, unhealthy eating habits, and poor medication adherence may reduce your risk for having another heart attack.
The American Heart Association's Secondary Heart Attack Prevention Initiative, sponsored by Bayer, reminds you to follow your doctor's recommendations to help reduce your risk factors.
Take your medication as prescribed. Certain medicines like aspirin can lower your risk of another cardiac event. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. It's important to understand your medications and take them correctly. Manage risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Quit smoking, eat healthier, and get active.
Learn more ways to thrive after a heart attack at heart.org/oneisenough.
Are you living with pain? I was, after a nasty fall. I got relief with 1 hour pain relief. I'm Barry Yarconi, president, and here's Lisa, a Marine who was injured in Iraq.
After surviving an explosion, I was on horrible painkillers for lingering head, shoulder, back, and knee pain, but I hated the dangers and side effects. My friend told me about 1 hour pain relief, and now I'm off the drugs.
1 hour pain relief is the result of 15 years of research on an amazing extract from hops, the plant used to flavor beer.
Whether your pain is from an injury or just aging, you get safe, all-day relief in less than 1 hour.
We're so sure you'll love 1 hour pain relief too that we'll send you a 1-week trial for just a small shipping charge. Call 800-269-9500 right now. That's 800-269-9500. There's no gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Stop living with pain. Call 800-269-9500 for your 1-week trial or visit onehourpainrelief.com. That's 800-269-9500.
Supporting the middle class. This is the Jeff Santos Show.
33 minutes past the hour. This is Jeff Santos Show. You are tuned into, coming to you live from the South Coast here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We are the Jeff Santos Show. We are here every Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 Eastern Time, 12 to 3 Pacific. And, of course, you can always check us out on Facebook Live in the search bar, Jeff Santos Show. We're making some adjustments to that, too, over the coming days. And you can listen at your leisure and watch at your leisure, of course, too, because now we're doing video, as you can see at Facebook Live. We'll be doing a lot more on many platforms, including Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, etc. They're all there, and we're expanding it as we speak. Speaking of expanding, our next guest has led our revolution to the very powerful progressive platform that it is for candidates running at the local level. Again, we've talked about this. In fact, we talked with Larry about the idea of minor league baseball getting representation to unions. Well, it's the same concept. Minor league baseball, you develop the players, single A, double A, triple A. They come to the major leagues, right? Well, here we got to do the same thing with the progressive movement. You got to get them at town council, town meeting, city council, state representative, and so on and so forth. County seats too. And that's how you bring it up. And eventually you get a progressive caucus that's 225 deep as opposed to, 90 or 100. The few phonies running around in there too. That's what we need. And that's why Larry Cohen understands this. He's the former president of Communication Workers of America, former chair of the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016, now chair of Our Revolution, and always great to speak to him. Normally on the Thursday block between 5 and 6, but we got him before the weekend, before he could escape from us. Larry, how are you? Great to have you back, my friend.
Okay, great to hear you. Hope all is well.
Everything is going well as it could be in this crazy planet of ours and country too. Well, look, I think that, like a lot of Americans, we celebrated the fact that mainly a lot of the progressive initiatives that our good friend Bernie Sanders, who I'll have hopefully get a chance to see on Sunday when he's here in Massachusetts, along with Sean O'Brien of the Teamsters and our good friend Sarah Nelson of the Flight Attendants Union. You were part of that 16 campaign to push an agenda, that agenda of Medicare for all, that agenda of climate change. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it was Bernie Sanders in 2016, not 20, who talked about, when asked what's the biggest foreign policy concern he can name, he didn't name, Russia, didn't name China, he didn't name the Middle East. He named climate crisis. Again, what are we seeing in this legislative initiative called the IRA, not the Irish Republican Army, not that I interviewed Jerry Adams, not the individual retirement accounts, but this new improved, from Manchin's perspective, I guess, the Inflation Reduction Act. I think, obviously we could have gone a lot farther, 10 prescription drugs, we could go a lot more than 10, I don't know the magic number of that. And obviously climate change, we never had anything on climate change really. And of course, insulin and raising the taxes on the top 1% and so forth. I think all these things are good. It would never been done by a centrist Democratic Party if you didn't have the pushing, the prodding, the shouting from the mountaintops that, led by many people, not Bernie Sanders himself, but a lot of people in Congress, a lot of people who were volunteers for that campaign as well. Your thoughts, Larry, where we are and where we need to go, because we need to come together, as I said at the top of the show today. But let's start with how we get to IRA.
Yeah, so if I would just say, especially having listened for the last half hour or so, to you, the callers, yes, we unite to fight totalitarianism, if not fascism, in the general election. And, there's still another month primaries and lots of other things that, I'm involved in, that our revolution is involved in inside the Democratic Party. It's always a fight both ways, inside and outside, just as it was and it is in any Democratic Union. So, but, I'm probably more cautious on the Inflation Reduction Act. The third part is the one I'm most enthusiastic about, are raised, and that there'll be more money, ideally one day, to spend on things that address human needs. So the tax part of this is progressive, and we should take not only Bernie but Elizabeth Warren, who's been on this for years, and others. The tax part is by far the best part that's not offset, and so the other two parts, healthcare and climate, are offset. And I can say, Jeff, and it's my opinion, although it's based on facts from my point of view, the climate part will be totally undone if what we call the dirty Manchin side deal is done. It wasn't
right.
Part of it.
I want to get into that, actually.
Yes. Yeah, well, our revolution and me, in many ways, as well, working, now around the clock to kill that side deal, and urged by 350.org and Food and Water Watch taking over Patty Murray's office in Seattle, and another group I'm not familiar with in Schumer's office, maybe even now, in New York City. it's going to take direct act to blow this. I shouldn't use the words anymore because we have fascists in this country.
Right.
But
I know where you're
the
going.
different word, prevent this.
Yes.
Raul Grijalva is a champion already on this, and Raul chairs the Natural Resources Committee in the House, and he is saying this cannot be combined with the bill, which is what their intent was, Pelosi and Schumer, to fund the government. The government will run out of money at the end of September, before the midterms, and the House adjourns at the end of September until the middle of November for the election. So they're only back for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks. They're adjourned now. And the deal they made was to advance it through the continuing funds of the government. So the Democrats would be forced with shutting the government down before the midterms if they didn't go along with the dirty mansion deal. Raul and many others, Jayapal, leading the way on this to prevent that from happening, but it's a treacherous mistake that's been made. And, I can stop and listen to you or go a different direction, but we've got to be really careful here, because when you have this kind of split situation and you have Democrats who are somewhat opportunistic, can't wait to show what they've done, they overdo it. And this is a case of the tax front. It's spectacular. But I talked about the climate. The healthcare thing is close to a fraud as well. Can dive more into that. You've already started to. Yeah.
Well, let me just say this.
Not only that, they're going to have Medicare pay. Medicare is going to pay for all the overruns on prescription drugs when somebody hits $2,000. So that's totally fine. What are we doing to hold the prices down on the pharma industry? The 10 drugs. And by the way, it's 2025 that they start to negotiate, and there's going to be lawsuits. It's a very tricky proposition that with these courts, this federal jury, that MMS, Medicare Medicaid Services, is going to be able to complete successfully negotiating 10 pharma prices in 2025 before they steam into the courts, and with the federal judiciary against them. So again, I don't want to be the downer here, because I believe every minute and stand up and fight back, and there's always a path. But on the other hand, my friend Chuck Schumer, and I've known the guy for deliberately for political reasons, way overstating what's been accomplished. Again, except for the very important, the tax provisions here, and Sinema helped ruin one of them, or prevented one of them that was clearly needed. But the tax provisions are 100% progressive, period.
Well, here you go, Larry. A couple of things, a couple of good friends of yours I'm going to talk about in a second here. But I look at this whole healthcare thing, as you well know, and I've told my audience about what my dad has been going through with hospitals and some in the medical profession, the administrations that are going on, all the things that have happened over the last few months. And so I've seen a lot of this. I've seen how the VA does one thing and Medicare and private hospitals do another.
That's right.
You see
That's
how, Medicare, is basically run. People didn't know this. I didn't know this until a couple of years ago myself. You got all these private corporations that sit on these boards that make these rules. They have these independent arbiters, supposedly, that hospitals, use, independent private companies. And what they do is they basically agree with whatever the hospital says, because they don't have enough people to go to the actual hospital in wherever it is to go and see the patient. They just make the observation from what they read on a piece of paper. And that's supposed to be the honest, objective arbitrator? It's complete BS. So I agree 100% on this medical stuff. I want to talk about the great city of Detroit. Tlaib came out the other day representing the people of Detroit and the areas around there. And she knows of the BS that Manchin has done with all his oil friends in Texas there, all the Republican money that he was photographed at, our friends at the Lever and so forth, David Sirota Company and so on, have done. And, it seems to me that she gets it, and she says over her dead body that we're going to get this side deal, which is a giveaway to the oil companies and fossil fuel companies as a whole, which, of course, Manchin is part of the coal and oil world. But I think about the issue that Bernie did with prescription drugs. He went up to Detroit. He actually went across the bridge. And I don't know if there's any video of this, because I would love to have it.
Several times.
To
times.
Windsor.
That's right.
Right. And I would love to see, 1 foot in America and 1 foot in Canada, and the difference of prescription drug costs, which Bernie has talked about going to Burlington and going up to Montreal and Quebec and so on and so forth.
Right.
And this to me has
That's
to be brought front and center. Now, Detroit, last time I checked, is a top 15 media market. I'm not talking about, 20 people in Vermont. And this to me is vital to show what needs to be done. 10 prescription drugs that are cleared, and that's what, going to wait 3 years for that? It's just insane. And the other thing is, we had your good friend in mind, and we didn't get into what happened to her, but this stuff has to end, and it has to end in November. I have no problem, getting together with people who you deal with at the DNC or a DNC member. But I don't want to have people, cutting off the knees of good people. Yesterday we had on Nina Turner. We know what happened to her twice. We cannot allow, whether it's AIPAC or any of these so-called Republican groups that merge into Democratic groups and so forth, to trash and bury and kneecap these candidates. And the one that really bugs me, and I was talking with our foreign policy team, Larry Korb, former Reagan Deputy Defense Secretary, heartily a Dove, and of course is now thankfully working with the Center for American Progress and now working with Bernie Sanders, and Brian Garvey over at Mass Peace Action. And I talked to them about this situation with AIPAC. I says, what are they doing? In basically taking in a issue where they are trying to protect the rights of Israel and going after somebody like Andy Levin, who is, and again, I'm not Jewish, so I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I think he is an overseer of a director of a synagogue. And they're going after him and his family, who served the great state of Michigan. Carl Levin, who I've interviewed many times in the past when I was a DC bureau chief, and Sandra Levin, his father. I mean, what are we doing here? So, anyways, that's a little bit of Michigan.
Yeah, first of all, let me switch to the positive on this. So,
all right.
So I'm one of 35 members of the DNC that yesterday submitted a resolution to put money in Democratic primaries. This is a total scam. You can't have Democrats talking against Citizens United, and then in the primaries, which Democrats control, please rule those are private functions, meaning the Democratic Party rules are private, not public. It's a private party. They spend and gleefully accept and encourage, and this is the ship of the party, tens of millions of dollars. This year sets a record for for all money, first of all, and this is what did in Nina, for all money in Democratic primaries, dark money. And it doesn't stop there. The problem is we talk about AIPAC, and by the way, in Andy Levin's case, Planned Parenthood, crypto money, over $2 million. This is all Andy Levin. $7 million of TV ads demonizing him. Nothing about Haley Stevens. Again, I could go on and on, as you can hear, because I for 25 years. In many ways, this is the worst of the primaries, because this was done to an incumbent with that legacy in Michigan by the right wing, of which Haley Stevens is a leader. This doesn't get enough attention. So yeah, I realized I learned when I was 5 years old, getting your voice louder doesn't do a thing. It doesn't stop me, 65 years later.
Yeah.
But
well, it reminds me of that person who would,
by far
would shout at somebody and says, "Can you speak English?" Just yell just because it'll make it better. Go ahead.
Yes.
Understood.
Right. Well, you'll get me started on my great grandmother and what she used to say. And she was an immigrant from Ireland, of all places, Mary Frances. But in any case, we'll leave that for another day. What she'd say about talk versus action. This is the lecture I give Democrats all the time. They think that the message is what matters and not the results. we're not losing working class voters, black, brown, and white, over the message, because the message is BS. They just lie and say whatever they need to. We're losing them on the results. And
Exactly.
My 40 years and 10 years as president, our members understood the results when we came back, when we bargained. And they also said that we lost a lot of the time against corporate America. But what they demanded was honesty and how to move forward. And so, that's where we need to go. But just to finish this point up, Jeff, we have brought this resolution to the next meeting. The DNC only meets twice a year. If they had their way, they wouldn't meet at all, or they'd meet on Zoom. That's their new way to totally control the meeting. And I'm not against Zoom, for a media show, but this is the governance of the party. So this resolution, they will try to bury it and never get a vote. But this is 35 members, and we have a reform group now, an ongoing reform group in the DNC of 60-some members, more than half of which jumped on this before the deadline yesterday. And we're going to do whatever it takes to get this heard, not only there, but in the Massachusetts party and everywhere else, where it's not just the APACs. It's where does the money end up? And you know where it ends up? At Democratic consulting and media firms. And that's who spends the money. And that's where and they get 15% profit on
15%
on average.
Oh, yeah.
From placing the media.
A lot of people have got wealthy that way.
Right. So when
Maybe I should have
Sam
stuck in that
Bankman-Fried,
industry years
the
ago.
30-year-old crypto billionaire, when
Yes.
Sam Bankman-Fried he's already spent about, and our friend Kuttner has a very good article on this today, he's already spent about $20 million in Democratic primaries this year. That's nothing to him. He's worth $20 billion. He's 30 years old. He pays no U.S. taxes. He's based in the Bahamas. He lives in Hong Kong. These are the people. These are the people.
Exactly.
On the one hand, the others are just pass-throughs. And then on the other hand, it's the Knickerbockers. Anita Dunn, who just left Knickerbocker to go back to the White House to be in charge of legislation and policy. This is where the party goes down the drain. This is where working class people, black, brown, and white, lose any faith that it makes any difference when we get involved. And you can hear that, and I spend way too much time every week, and it's all volunteers, since I left CWA, 15 years now. And it is incredibly frustrating because it's the rules, not the rulers. I love Bernie, but it's not Bernie. It's us, the rules. We've got to demand rules change. Infatuated by the next nice face that comes along and says what we like to hear.
You're on fire, man. We don't have the song that, wouldn't have fit you perfectly because of your gender, but there's a great song by the great Alicia Keys called Girl on Fire. You're a man on fire.
There you go. Bruce Springsteen, you can't start a fire without a spark.
There you go. Now, here's a guy that I would vote for governor or senator.
To play at the union meeting. Well, let me tell you, my fantasy is we run him until he won't do it. I mean, I used to know him when he was in New Jersey. I spent 20 years in New Jersey. That's where my union life was. I grew up in Philly, but right across the river, and knew him.
Well, I tell you, a couple of our next guests, Larry. I know you have a bunch of time here, but coming up, the Economic Bill of Rights with our good friend Professor Harvey Kaye, and we're gonna have to get you guys together one of these days. Then after that is Alan Grayson. You talked about the crypto money. They get a 25-year-old guy. Grayson has represented that district in the past, 2 different districts, by the way, in Florida, and he'll be on at 5 o'clock. And they got a guy, a 25-year-old guy, doesn't know anything, taking all this money from your friend Bankhead there. I'm obviously being facetious, not your friend. That's a crypto race there. I think his name is Frost. And then after that is Mark Taylor Canfield, who's a musician as well as a great reporter. And the fascinating thing about that is that he and I have been talking about Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam running for office. And to me, I really think that, if we can get folks who actually care, not, phonies that, these pop bands that pop on Today's Show in the morning or whatever, bubblegum. But, actually, folks, he was very big on the whole Ticketmaster scam and so forth, was Vedder and Pearl Jam. So, I think all of that, to me, is really important. So Springsteen, Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters, however, we can manage this. I think they're all good. All right, I want to go to the phones because we want to talk about labor a little bit. And our good friend Mark is in San Francisco, a retired labor leader at the San Francisco Chronicle. And Mark in San Francisco, you're next with the great Larry Cohen, former president of Communication Workers of America. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, Larry, we need to build our farm system, and we really got to get behind these young workers that want to form a union, and we got to find politicians that are going to stand with them, with labor, and catch this wave, because young people are going to really need the backing of some of these representatives that we have in Congress and even the Senate. I'd love to see somebody sit in the negotiations, a congressperson or a woman or a senator sit in these negotiations with Starbucks and Amazon. We've got to build. We've got to get these young people recruited and help them build the labor movement again, and let them know they're welcome in the Democratic Party, and we'll back them. I think that'll make us a stronger Democratic Party.
Could that happen, Larry? Could we get somebody like Cori Bush? I don't know if she was a union member when she was a nurse, but could we actually make that happen, or would they not allow that to have a member of Congress? Do they have, rules against that per se?
No, I mean, not only is it a great idea, but we've done it. I mean, we did it when I did it when I was active, in this, not only as president, but long before that. No, you can bring anybody you want to the bargaining table. The problem is going to be, so first of all, great idea, and we need to do much more of it. But the bigger problem we're going to have is, legally compelling Starbucks to bargain. Howard Schultz and Littler Mendelson, one of the worst law firms in America, with Starbucks money, have hired 40 lawyers just to fight the NLRB. 40 full-time lawyers at about $1,000 an hour. So that's $40 million. I got my decimal points wrong, but it's 40 lawyers full-time at $1,000 an hour. So $40,000 a week. You can figure out the arithmetic. I'm stopping on that. But the NLRB has been frozen for 10 years, the staffing level. They're down 50%. So the first problem is how we even get bargaining going at Starbucks when there's 200 elections so far, there's 400 elections, over 200 were won, and many never got to an election, or 400 petitions filed, 46 were lost. But they're separate negotiations, and there haven't been any negotiations. They might have had in Buffalo 1 or 2 sessions. That's
20
it.
seconds, Larry.
So yes, the answer is a big yes. Bring electeds to the table. Let them see it first. Management see.
I agree.
Who's on our side? But the other answer
Larry,
is
look forward to
we
seeing
got to
you on
fund the
Thursday, my
NLRB.
friend. I agree with that. See
Bye-bye.
you on Thursday. Have a great weekend.
You don't have to wait for amazing deals on a new floor. Get spring Black Friday deals right now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring. This week, save up to 35% on gorgeous hardwood and waterproof vinyl floors. Plus, we can arrange for installation by professional, independent contractors. And with special financing, you can get started today. These are the floors homes are built on. Lumber Liquidators Flooring.
The Jeff Santos Show is brought to you by Mass Peace Action. With over 9,000 supporters in the state, MPA uses the power of grassroots organizing to end war, create a more just foreign policy, and cut wasteful Pentagon spending to support the needs of the American people, like healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the environment. 20 years of war is long enough. To become a member or learn more, visit masspeaceaction.org. Don't wish for peace, work for it.
I'm Rich Rosario. 1 in 4 heart attack survivors will have another cardiovascular event. Award-winning author and American Heart Association volunteer Dr. Nisa Goldberg explains the hidden risks.
Many people don't realize that managing hidden risks like untreated high blood pressure, unhealthy eating habits, and poor medication adherence may reduce your risk for having another heart attack.
The American Heart Association's Secondary Heart Attack Prevention Initiative, sponsored by Bayer, reminds you to follow your doctor's recommendations to help reduce your risk factors.
Take your medication as prescribed. Certain medicines like aspirin can lower your risk of another cardiac event. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. It's important to understand your medications and take them correctly. Manage risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Quit smoking, eat healthier, and get active.
Learn more ways to thrive after a heart attack at heart.org/oneisenough.
Walmart, CVS, and Walgreens must pay a combined $650.6 million to two Ohio counties for damages related to the opioid crisis, a federal judge ruled this week.
U.S. District Judge Dan Aaron Polster ruled that over the next 15 years, approximately $306.2 million must be paid to Lake County and approximately $344.4 million must be paid to Trumbull County. All three companies were found liable for their role in the opioid epidemic in both Lake and Trumbull counties last November. Davis Richards reporting.
New coronavirus cases reported globally dropped nearly a quarter in the last week, while deaths fell 6%, but were still higher in parts of Asia.
The UN Health Agency said there were 5.4 million new COVID-19 cases reported last week, a decline of 24% from the previous week. Infections fell everywhere in the world, including by nearly 40% in Africa and Europe, and by a third in the Middle East. COVID deaths rose in the Western Pacific and Southeast Asia by 31% and 12% respectively, but fell or remained stable everywhere else. Roger Cantor reporting.
Violent thunderstorms and hurricane-force winds left at least 8 people dead in France and Italy on Thursday.
The storm produced gusts of more than 136 miles per hour in some areas, the National Weather Agency Meteo France said. About 45,000 households were without power on Corsica. Dozens of people were injured and 12 were hospitalized in Corsica, one in critical condition, authorities said. Libby St. James reporting.
Turkey's president and the UN chief met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Thursday in a high-stakes bid to ratchet down a war raging for nearly 6 months.
The gathering, held far from the front lines in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv, near the Polish border, marked the first visit to Ukraine by Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan since the outbreak of the war, and the second by UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Erdogan has positioned himself as a go-between in efforts to stop the fighting. Harry Michaels reporting.
This is the latest news headlines. A spacewalk was cut short just a few hours into what was intended to be a nearly 7-hour spacewalk after a Russian cosmonaut was repeatedly ordered to drop what he was working on and return to the International Space Station's airlock because of an issue with his spacesuit. NASA officials said during a live stream that the cosmonaut was never in any danger. 2 former Pennsylvania judges who orchestrated a scheme to send children to for-profit jails in exchange for kickbacks were ordered to pay more than $200 million to hundreds of people they victimized in one of the worst judicial scandals in U.S. history. U.S. District Judge Christopher Connor awarded $106 million in compensatory damages and $100 million in punitive damages to nearly 300 people in a long-running civil lawsuit against the judges, writing the plaintiffs are the tragic human casualties of a scandal of epic proportions. Abortions in North Carolina are no longer legal after 20 weeks of pregnancy, a federal judge ruled Wednesday, eroding protections in one of the South's few remaining safe havens for reproductive freedom. U.S. District Judge William Osteen reinstated an unenforced 20-week abortion ban, with exceptions for urgent medical emergencies, after he said the June U.S. Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade erased the legal foundation for his 2019 ruling that placed an injunction on the 1973 state law. The former chief financial officer of the Trump Organization pleaded guilty Thursday to a 15-year tax fraud scheme, but he did not enter into a cooperation agreement to aid New York prosecutors in their criminal investigation of the real estate company's finances, a person familiar with the matter said. Under the terms of the agreement, Weisselberg would receive a 5-month prison sentence.
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Lone Star Transfer. If you are a timeshare owner, getting out is probably a top priority. And now that annual maintenance fees are coming due, this ongoing burden and expense is at the top of your list. Thankfully, we can help. Let us do for you what we have done for thousands of others across the country. Our process is done legally, ethically, and quickly. Lone Star Transfer has a 99% success rate and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. We are a family-owned business and will personally make sure your experience is a pleasant one. Don't let another day go by with maintenance fees taking your hard-earned money. Give us a call for a no-obligation consultation at 844-284-4863. That's 844-284-4863 or online at LoneStarTransfer.com. That's LoneStarTransfer.com.
So you want to go green? How about going green with your greenbacks? Try Aspiration.com. Shares your values on the environment and climate change. Ever wonder what the big banks do with your deposits? Well, it goes to fossil fuel companies for sure. Not at Aspiration.com. Your deposits will never fund fossil fuel projects like pipelines, oil rigs, and coal mines. With Aspiration.com, you get 55,000 free in-network ATMs, 3 to 5% cash back on conscientious coalition purchases, personal impact score to help you shop to match your values, and an option to plant a tree with every roundup. Deposits in your Aspiration Spend and Save account are FDIC insured up to $2.46 million per deposit by being swept to FDIC member institutions. To find out more, you can go to aspiration.com/revolution.
Is the Jeff Santos Show on the Revolution Radio Network. Rebuilding America. Together. Investing, activism, and supporting the middle class. Now, here's Jeff.
It is hour 2 of the Jeff Santos Show. Welcome to it, folks. Coming live from the South Coast here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We're going to be spending the next hour traveling up to Green Bay, Wisconsin, in search of wide receivers who can play for Aaron Rodgers. No, not going to do that. We have a man on the task on that, actually. He's a professor at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. Well, technically Professor Emeritus. He is also an author of great books on FDR, the fantastic FDR. It's, after all, an FDR Friday. And on the great Thomas Paine, and don't pay attention to those stupid CarShield ads that use Thomas Paine's name in vain, for crying out loud. But you can tune in here every Friday at 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central, and listen to the smooth-sounding jazz of Professor Harvey K. He, of course, along with Alan Minsky, Minsky Mondays, 5 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 o'clock Pacific. He and Mr. Minsky have put together the FDR 1944 version of the Economic Bill of Rights. Well, they have made it a 21st century version of the Economic Bill of Rights. Mr. Harvey K. joins us via video from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Mr. Harvey K., how are you, sir? You're dressed in black
First
today? Is that black or blue?
Always navy blue. Never wear black.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I just never wear black.
Good. So, all right.
Okay. Especially not in the summer, but never. I'm everything I own is blue or green and yellow, or get the idea. Gold and green. Listen, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Good, because I forgot to the last minute to put my microphone on. So.
Oh, well,
anyhow.
That's a good thing.
It's a game tonight here in Green Bay. There's a football game here tonight. Yep.
So that means you can't drive tonight, right?
Yeah, pretty much. The Saints have come to town, and they had a shared practice 2 days of this week, I guess, 3 days, something like that. So,
okay.
There was talk in town about the possibility of a fight on the practice field.
Yeah, we had
because somebody on the Saints team apparently got in a fight with his own teammates before they even got here.
Oh my.
Yeah.
The Patriots and the Carolina Panthers, of course, now have Baker Mayfield. We were talking yesterday with our good friend Kevin Paul DuPont, who's a great columnist, sports columnist with the Boston Globe. Just to bring this up, this whole thing with Deshaun Watson, get 11 games suspension, 25 women he sexually harassed and maybe assaulted, depending on how you look at it, that definition. Slap on the wrist. Colin Kaepernick didn't do any damage to anybody. Took a knee. Peaceful protest. You can't get much more peaceful than that.
Right.
And
it's outrageous. And then this morning when I was listening to the sports guys here in Green Bay, I asked myself, how did they come up with the 11-game suspension? How would they do? Like throw the dice and see what came up?
See, it's 7. It's 11. It's 7. Well, they originally had 6? Is that what they gave the arbitrator? Who was probably pro player, and then they added another 5. So, and this was so-called compromise between Roger Goodell and the NFL and the Players Association.
Yeah, I have to tell you that I'm a huge Packers fan, as you know. I mean, very committed, really. But I hate the NFL. I despise the NFL.
Why? How can anybody like that league? I mean, this is a group that's led by individual billionaires, and yet they practice socialism. I mean, how else could even Green Bay exist? I mean, how can the Cleveland Browns exist with the horrific team they've had for 15 years since the Modell version of the Browns left and became, Super Bowl winners in Baltimore?
Yeah, well, though in fact, nowadays we may not have an owner as all the other teams have, which makes them all the more slimy.
That's the great thing about Green Bay. That's right.
We don't have that kind of singular owning family or individual. Right. But we are a decidedly valuable and profitable team.
Right.
It just gets shoved back into city.
Right. Yeah, because you got the situation where the NFL throws the revenue, TV money. I mean, there's no other sport that has every major over-the-air channel, which was, years ago called, I guess, VHF, UHF was like the number channels 54 and 69 and all that, right? So, they get all the, Fox is there, NBC, CBS, ABC, they're all there. They'll put cable stations on top of it. I mean, it's baseball doesn't have that. Basketball doesn't have it. Hockey doesn't have it for sure. So, I mean, that's what it is. It's just, it's all there. Just throw the money at all the owners and all the cities.
Yeah, the two sports questions that the two sports questions that it's rolling through Wisconsin is, first of all, will the Brewers ever win a World Series? Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
they're the kind of team that's always threatening, and what do they say? Always. Well, I forget the proverbial one. It's like they're always threatening or promising to go all the way, and they just never get that far. So that's the first. And the second question is that there's a lot of journalists are sort of wondering about Rodgers for something new, right? That he challenged or criticized the receivers. You opened up on that note, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yeah, he's really disappointing in his young receivers. Of course, they let go of Adams, which was a stupid deal to begin with. I don't know how much money he went to the Raiders for, but you would think that they could have matched him. Anyways, Adams may have said, I want out, and if you won't let me out, I'll sit out a year. Who knows? Yeah, it could be. It also could have been a situation we didn't know.
My theory was he left because he just didn't like Rodgers.
Maybe. Now, I'm wondering if that's indeed the case, then Rodgers really should, welcome, these young kids, because maybe he can, have to put the brainwash on him. But,
this morning they also reported that the Atlanta Falcons quarterback, who's the quarterback for Atlanta Falcons? You remember?
Well, it used to be Ryan. I don't know who they have now.
No, it's not Ryan. I think it was the Falcons.
Matt Ryan went to the Colts this year.
Had taken the new young quarterback under his wing. It actually was purposely and determinedly mentoring him. And one would have liked to have heard that Rodgers had it in him to do that with Love, okay, who's also quarterbacking again tonight. I guess Rodgers' primary goal is to stay in the media, stay right up front in the media.
Well, according to Google here, it's Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ryder,
that's it,
and Felipe Franks. So there you go.
Yeah, Mariota, I guess, is the guy, right?
Yeah.
Or is he the new guy or the quarterback?
Yeah, the Oregon guy. Yeah, he's the new guy. Yeah, Ryan left.
Okay, new guy.
All right, so we could talk sports the whole game, but the whole night. But I
the whole game. Yeah.
I invited. Yeah, well, there's a game sometimes when you think about it for 3 hours.
Okay, my wife next week has her fourth major week or 2-week period coming up. It's the U.S. Open tennis, not starting up over the near horizon now.
Right. In New York. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is she going?
Yeah. Yes. She and my daughter, younger daughter, every year they go for. They don't buy tickets. They don't spend lots of money to get into the indoor, but they go for at least a couple of days. And in fact, I'm going to go along with her to New York. I will not go to the tennis tournament, though.
Okay.
I'm not a tennis fan. I'm neither a golf nor a tennis fan, and and I've never really come up with the answer to which puts me to sleep more.
Well, I agree with you on golf. Check out the a lot of people believe it's a racist movie. I don't think it's that racist, but it is interesting from an economic populist perspective. Michael Douglas's movie called Falling Down, and in the movie, Michael Douglas is carrying it's kind of weapons that he picked up at an Army Navy store, or a real lunatic that owned that place, racist. And he's going up, and these guys want to play golf, and they're yelling and here comes Douglas up the greenway, and they almost nail him with a golf ball. And Douglas goes, "You're trying to kill me with a golf ball." and the whole thing, you can see it from there. But it's very funny in that way. But to me, it is really an elitist sport, golf. I like to play tennis. I can't watch it either because back and forth, it's like a ping pong. But but I tell you, golf, and this is where we're going to launch into what is happening, I think, in our country today. I mean, what we see, and I was talking with some friends about this earlier, Harvey, and golf to me is the epitome of this. And you see what's happening now in Saudi Arabia, where they're trying to have all these great North American and British golfers to go over to play there. The Leave tournament, I think, is what it's called, and these guys are doing it, and they could care less that Khashoggi got crushed. A great journalist, the Washington Post. They don't care, and it's this elitism that is there that no one is concerned about community. You mentioned about the Packers. Well, here you go. It's the community that owns it, right? We don't have that anymore. And I think that's what's really aggravating the population to the point where, a couple of people do very well. So we're going to get all excited about those two people, whether they're African-American or Latino or Asian and so forth. Meanwhile, it's just like the charter school thing, which very well. And we talked about your good friend, Mr. Shelton, the other day. What you end up with is they love the charter school industry. What they say is this: we're going to make sure that those kids who come from bad neighborhoods have a chance to succeed. All 8 of them, and then the rest of them, the other 800, right, are left behind.
Yeah. I always got a kick out of that.
That's where we are. Exactly.
Well, I guess. And then when you talk about that, people say, "Well, what would you do? What if the billionaires didn't give money for these kinds of things?" And it doesn't cross most people's minds that maybe the problem is that we have billionaires.
That's right. And look at how many we have compared to other countries. Think about that for a second. You go to Sweden, you don't have the billionaire block. You don't have the similar situation in most of Europe. It's just not that way. Our culture celebrates. In the 1980s, there used to be shows, like the rich lifestyles of the rich.
Lifestyles.
Remember Robin Leach? Yeah,
I remember those shows. I didn't watch them, but that was like, it was clear to me that was a celebration of the ever grosser inequalities that had begun to take off under Carter and exploded all the more with the Reagan Republicans.
Right. Keep calm. That's your coffee cup, right?
Oh yeah, it's. I don't drink coffee. I drink tea. And this is water.
Carry on. Keep calm. Carry on.
Keep calm and carry on. So it's a UK thing.
Yes,
it was the warning that they gave the Brits in case Germany actually did conquer Britain.
Oh yeah, of course, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, the Blitzkrieg.
Yeah.
Well, we were just had our good friend, and we I made the case for Larry and you to get together, Larry Cohen, of our revolution. He sits on the DNC, by the way, and
Good for him.
They are well.
Must be awfully
thank God he's
frustrating.
there.
Must be terribly frustrating for Larry Cohen.
Yeah, he and about
DNC.
35 others are holding up the the progressive wing of the DNC. And some of the stuff that goes on. I mean, we were just talking about what happened to our good friend Andy Levin. I mean, AIPAC and Republican money goes after the Levin family. Carl Levin, the great senator I used to interview when I was the DC bureau chief down there, and of course Sander Levin, his father.
The congressman.
What's going on here? Yeah, exactly. The father of the congressman. I mean, what is going on? And Pelosi and Hoyer and the rest of the team stand by. Oh, this is okay. Oh, we're going to have, and apparently, I guess it was Emily's list that went on in Planned Parenthood, took the woman over Andy Levin, and apparently Labor didn't do enough. I don't know. It just aggravates me to no end to see, the tragedy. And of course, yesterday we had on Nina Turner. You know what happened.
I did listen. I listened.
Yeah.
Yep. And I sent Nina a note afterward how pleased I was to hear her on the show.
Yeah. We look forward to having Nina on again a little bit longer. And
she's got her new podcast, her new show launching with the Young Turk. She's going back on. She's going to do I think it's a late afternoon, hour a day show with them. I don't know if she mentioned that.
Interesting.
But she is going to do that.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Well, she doesn't compete with my show. I'm okay. That's all right.
Exactly. And then she asked people on Twitter. It's very funny, actually. She asked people on Twitter. First, she asked people to nominate the first guests they'd like to see on her show. Okay. Then yesterday she said it was something else, like just to name people they'd like to see on the show. So since I know her well and I've done her podcast a number of times, I said, I'd like to see Bernie Sanders and me at the same time.
There you go. You should be your own agent, Mr. Harvey K.
Nobody else.
We're all over the place today. Yeah, I know that feeling. All too well. Hey, I want to tell you, I think that one of the great things is that there are a lot of people, as frustrating as the DNC stuff that Larry and I were talking about, as frustrating as it is with the weakness of the legislation. I think, the IRA, by the way, how many times when you hear IRA, do you think Jerry Adams in Northern Ireland? How many times do you think individual retirement accounts? I mean,
right.
Talk about messaging. Couldn't we think of something else? I understand you wanted inflation in their King Mansion, but
yeah, well, it's just further proof that the Bidenettes have absolutely no memory whatsoever anyhow. So, but I do want to say, I saw this afternoon, I don't know how it's been resolved, that climate activists had occupied Patty Murray, is it? Her office is out in Washington
Patty Murray
State.
In Seattle.
Yep. And
yes, Larry was talking about that, and I think they're also going after Schumer's office too. Actually.
Not a bad idea, I guess.
Not a bad idea. He's the one that allowed the side deal. Tlaib, a member of the squad, and also from that great state of Michigan. By the way, here's my, and I have
Wait, you mean Washington? Washington.
Tlaib is from
Washington
Michigan.
State or Michigan?
Michigan. Tlaib is from Michigan, from Detroit.
Yeah, but you said also from that great state. I thought we were talking about Patty Murray's office, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, well no, I wasn't thinking about that. I was
thinking Andy
about
Levin
Michigan
still.
because of Levin. Yes,
yes,
exactly.
absolutely, right.
And the horrible football team that plays in your conference that gives you 2 wins every year. Don't forget about that. The ferocious Lions, who are blue. By the way, when's the last time you saw a silver and blue lion? I mean, color.
Not even in a Disney movie. Not even in a Disney movie.
Change your colors, Detroit. Maybe it'll work. I don't know. Maybe it was after Ford because Ford is blue and silver. Is that the concept? I don't know. I've owned Ford for years as you, so I mean it's nice, but you can change the color combination, guys.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll give you better luck. So Tlaib has said no more to the side deals, which would give away to the fossil fuel companies. And I think that Michigan, because of all the diversity and so forth, why not make them the first state to have a primary state? In other words, skip over Iowa and New Hampshire. Very diverse. It's also a swing state. So that's one. Number two, why not have the Democratic National Convention there? We need another Midwestern city. We had Milwaukee for like 3 minutes. In 2020. I understand the pandemic. I'm not blaming anybody.
Yeah, they should have come back to Milwaukee. I believe the Republicans that they're coming now to Milwaukee. I think.
Are they?
That's my sense.
Anyway.
I think I read that.
Yeah. Well, I think that Michigan should be play a pivotal role in the party. Well, we can take a call right now because this is a half hour.
I'm sorry. I hope we didn't spend too much time sort of playfully talking as opposed to.
No, it's all good.
It is Friday afternoon.
It is
We're
Friday
on the verge
afternoon.
of the new football, a real football season upcoming. Most people are probably going away for their last 2 weeks of the summer vacation if they can afford to.
If you can afford to. Well, let me say this.
Well, I have something. I have something. I
We'll
would
take some
just
calls
mention to
after.
people. Yeah.
Well, I just feel that the Democratic Party has to be able to work. The progressive wing has to work with the centrist wing, and the centrist wing has to work with the progressive wing. Obviously, what they've done to kneecap the likes of Cisneros and Nina and Levin, need to be corrected. I mean, this is where, if you're going to make a deal with the devil, with the centrist corporate Democrats, they're going to say no more of this stuff. And I think that's why Larry is on his hind legs regarding primaries and how, they do it both ways. They cut the knees of progressives off and then allow, all the stuff to come out. I mean, the Cuellar thing to me is just beyond approach. This during the Uvalde school massacre, the guy got the number one rating. I mean, and yet they back him, the pro-life candidate, the only candidate in the whole bloody Democratic Party.
I mean, I am a dues-paying member of the Brown County Democratic Party, but as far as the national party is concerned, I'm regularly ashamed to say anything too celebrative of the Democratic Party. I mean, what have we got to point to? Okay, I mean, when they finally come up with this,
people there, but I mean, it really is frustrating. To see some of these things.
But let's face it. I mean, the leadership of the Democratic Party in Washington D.C. Come on, I mean, it's
oh yeah.
Anybody who came back from the past, from the 60s or beyond,
about rolling in your graves.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right, we're going to.
The side deals are just the side deal. By the way, that's side deal. Okay, to fast track licensing approval for fossil fuel offshoring, is it? And I just.
Yep. No, I mean, what you're dealing with is just outright, bribing, the mansions of the world. And then, he says, look, this is the only way we're going to get the deal done. We got to give these oil companies and these fossil fuel companies, some kickbacks. This is what got the deal done, apparently. I mean, this is how bad it is.
Well, I heard somebody told me. In fact,
at least the progressives held it to the side deal. They didn't put it actually in the deal, so that's a good thing. But still,
well, they're going to have to pass another bill then.
Yes, they have. Yes, they will. Hopefully. All right, we got a break. I'll just say this, Harvey. We're going to come back. We're going to take a bunch of calls in the next half hour, and we'll do this as a no NFL talk in the next half hour, because otherwise we'll definitely get derailed for sure. We are talking with our great friend Harvey Kaye. Not only is he a political mastermind and understands the world of FDR and Mr. Payne, and talk NFL, but we only have 3 hours. If we had 6, maybe we could spend 2 hours on it.
Just so people know, I have a personal interest. I am, after all, an owner of the Green Bay
That's
Packers.
right. You are an owner. You're part of the elite crowd there in the NFL. Harvey,
If
the
you had time,
elite.
I tell the story, but I hear the music. I know we're taking a break.
That's right. Yeah, that's Sweet Home Chicago, by the way.
Love it.
Not a bad place to go. Great city. We'll be right back, unless it's the Bears playing the Packers. It's the Jeff Santos Show.
Baby, don't you wanna go?
The Jeff Santos Show is brought to you by Mass Peace Action. With over 9,000 supporters in the state, MPA uses the power of grassroots organizing to end war, create a more just foreign policy, and cut wasteful Pentagon spending to support the needs of the American people, like healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the environment. 20 years of war is long enough. To become a member or learn more, visit masspeaceaction.org. Don't wish for peace, work for it.
You don't have to wait for amazing deals on a new floor. Get spring Black Friday deals right now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring. This week, save up to 35% on gorgeous hardwood and waterproof vinyl floors. Plus, we can arrange for installation by professional, independent contractors. And with special financing, you can get started today. These are the floors homes are built on. Lumber Liquidators Flooring.
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Lone Star Transfer. If you are a timeshare owner, getting out is probably a top priority. And now that annual maintenance fees are coming due, this ongoing burden and expense is at the top of your list. Thankfully, we can help. Let us do for you what we have done for thousands of others across the country. Our process is done legally, ethically, and quickly. Lone Star Transfer has a 99% success rate and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. We are a family-owned business and will personally make sure your experience is a pleasant one. Don't let another day go by with maintenance fees taking your hard-earned money. Give us a call for a no-obligation consultation at 844-284-4863. That's 844-284-4863. Or online at LoneStarTransfer.com. That's LoneStarTransfer.com.
So you want to go green? How about going green with your greenbacks? Try Aspiration.com. Shares your values on the environment and climate change. Ever wonder what the big banks do with your deposits? Well, it goes to fossil fuel companies for sure. Not at Aspiration.com. Your deposits will never fund fossil fuel projects like pipelines, oil rigs, and coal mines. With Aspiration.com, you get 55,000 free in-network ATMs, 3 to 5% cash back on conscientious coalition purchases, personal impact score to help you shop to match your values, and an option to plant a tree with every roundup. Deposits in your Aspiration Spend and Save account are FDIC insured up to $2.46 million per deposit by being swept to FDIC member institutions. To find out more, you can go to aspiration.com/revolution.
Supporting the middle class. This is the Jeff Santos Show.
33 minutes past the hour. It is the Jeff Santos Show that you are tuned into. Coming to you live from the South Coast here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I'm going to open up the phone lines at 833-545-5333. That's 833-545-545, Jeff with a J. No golfs allowed. We're going to start with Tom in Los Angeles, and he will be first in a matter of seconds, folks. Again, you can also email me, Jeff at revolutionboston.com. And again, we just lost Tom. Hopefully we can get him back. Jeff at revolutionboston.com.
I thought you were looking over to remember what your email was.
No. Don't be like that, Harvey K. You know. You think you are just over there and overlooking there.
As you can tell, I'm in a very silly mood this afternoon.
You are. hopefully you'll get wise when you travel with your wonderful wife to New York and get a little bit more respectful of your fellow.
That's so exciting.
hosts.
I probably get even giddier. Who knows?
Anyways, you could also post on Facebook and Twitter at Jeff Santos Show. Harvey will let me finish my work here. All right, let's go to John in Minneapolis. You are next with Professor K, and he's in a rare mood. Go right ahead, John.
Well, what can I say? I don't want to encourage him to be any more giddy than he already is.
That's all right.
Please tell me a joke.
He needs the Minnesota niceness. Go ahead. Don't forget, originally from New Jersey. They need some niceness over there.
Well, I'm originally from New York.
By the way, John was born in New York.
I don't tell people that.
I lived in Minnesota for a year.
You guys are two peas of a pod, I tell you.
Did you really? Yeah.
Yes, I did.
So what do you think
Cloud,
of Minnesota? Really?
Cloud.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great
They got
year.
a good hockey team. I know that.
St. Cloud, yeah, that was. I had a lot of hockey players in my classes. Not a lot, but I always had hockey players in my class. Yeah.
That's kind of Trump country in that that
right?
area of Minnesota.
I know. Well, wasn't that Bachman's?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well,
we're gonna have to make sure those
Bachman,
hockey players are educated.
She had a gerrymandered district that was created by Arnie Carlson's Republican Party. He was the governor here for a while, and he was responsible for privatizing the University of Minnesota's hospital and other kinds of things like that. But yeah, he created a district that scooped up the most conservative part of the Twin Cities or the metro area. And it extends from the Wisconsin border, I think, all the way across to St. Cloud. I don't know how they managed that, but they did.
That is
and,
how do you do that?
Know, I don't know, but it they haven't been able to vote in a Democrat for quite a long time, even after she left. So anyway, so it's interesting.
I know we're not supposed to talk sports, but I have a question for the two of you. So
go ahead.
Minnesota, there's a famous sportsman's name, athlete's name. I don't know if he's still around. Paul Giel. Does that name mean anything to either one of you? Okay, it's okay.
No,
I go from the Fran Tarkenton era of the Vikings. That's about where I start.
This goes back to
before my time.
Yeah.
Before my time.
Yeah, exactly. But he was famous in Minnesota, and
I have I have a little story about Puckett, the Minnesota Twin. He passed away, unfortunately, but I supposedly when I bought my stereo system, it was secondhand and it was his. They told me. I have Gary Puckett's old stereo system. I don't know, I don't know if I believe it or not, but it sounded like an interesting story. Why not?
Yeah, it makes perfect
it was
sense.
I usually
let me
have a
ask
lot
you this, Harvey, because this is something yesterday your colleague talked about, and John wanted to make a comment on this. What is happening with Will, the right-wing group, and the University of Wisconsin Green Bay, and how it affected John Shelton's class and so forth. Are you aware of all this, Harvey? I know you've been a little bit away.
There are a couple of things going around here. What is this one in particular?
Well, from what John was saying, and we were talking yesterday, is that it's Gestapo-like tactics that are trying to sort of go after. Right.
They issued a report about leftist activity at the university and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And, I'm just wondering, as somebody in academics, where, John was talking about John Shelton, not John the caller, to be specific here, about the idea that this is haunting like the Weimar Republic of the 1930s Germany. And, I'm wondering, as you look at this historically, where we are in this country, I mean, do you have any fears that we're, 1920s, early 1930s Germany here? I mean, do you feel we're that bad, or do you have a little bit more hope than that?
Well, if I can connect that to something which we didn't have time to discuss last week, did we? I don't believe we did, when a group of historians, liberal historians, basically met with a group of liberal historians who warned him of the threat that prevails to American democracy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they also connected it to right-wing.
We did a little bit on that.
We did. Well, it struck me that it was a little late to talk to Biden about that this summer. I mean, better late than never, as the saying goes, but it should have been discussed months and months ago, because this whole debacle that they had a year ago with this, Build Back Better, or for that matter, any serious legislative efforts that just were obstructed, not merely by the Republicans, but first and foremost by the Republicans, and ultimately the cherry on top, or cherries on top, Manchin and Sinema. I mean, this is like the outcome of decades of, talked about billionaires before, of what must be described as class war against labor, against the rights of people of color, against women's rights. And we've seen, what we've seen these last 6 years, okay, and before that, the obstruction during the Obama years, is really a culmination of a long, decades-long, almost 50 years now, long struggle. It all really began in around 1971. I don't know if we've ever talked about the Lewis Powell Memorandum. Okay, the lawyer from Virginia,
John D. from Minnesota has talked about that.
This was 50 years. But the worst part about that is that it could have been stymied, but the Democrats didn't seek to stymie it. They literally had lost their political imaginations. They had come to believe that liberalism was so secure. Liberalism was so secure, number one. Number two, in the course of the 70s, they became as much the servants of big money as the Republicans had been. So as a consequence, now we have decade upon decade upon decade, and people quite used to think that they were separate causes, these culture war efforts on the one hand, and the anti-labor reduce the size of government and lower taxes on the rich, as if these were separate, but they were very intimately involved. And there were actually, whole corporate and wealthy figures' efforts. I mean, the Koch brothers, were very happy to support movements of a culture war sort and a anti-labor sort, as opposed to having seen it as, libertarians on the one hand and moral majority types on the other. This is all of one movement. So, and for years, I mean, seriously speaking, for some years, back into the earlier 2000s, I'm not alone in having said this, many of us were saying that as long as the Democrats have turned their backs and allowed for the smashing of labor unions, have allowed for restrictions, or not restrictions, the breaking of the wall separating church and state, that's been going on for years. Democrats themselves participated in it. When you've got this year upon year accumulation of right-wing energy, and the so-called left, what used to be known as the liberals and the Democratic Party, are not even fighting the good fight, and essentially end up abandoning labor unions and working people. You get to the point where those people literally said, well, look, okay, if nobody's going to worry about my wages and my benefits, because seriously speaking, think about it. Back when you were, I'm going to say a little boy, but you weren't, back in the 80s and 90s, what we saw was a war on labor, which meant that working people were losing their pensions. I mean, this is like serious business. So after so many decades of this, and working people themselves saying, well, Jesus, if I can't control my own income and what little property I have in the form of retirement plans, then I might as well vote for Republicans, because they may at least, even as they're cutting the taxes of the rich, they might throw some pennies my way. I'll get some money to put into my wallet.
Yeah.
So
that doesn't happen. That's the trickle down theory that people are still waiting for since 1981.
No. I mean,
but I hear you. People can get bamboozled by that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then what happens is, okay, the ugliness of all this, okay, and the hard life that working people were experiencing literally turns into the debacle, especially in 2016, of the Trump victory over Hillary Clinton. I mean, think about the states: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, which literally should have been a Democratic voters, going her way, but went that way. And the nation along the way got so divided. So where are we now? Well, under Trump, I mean, Trump was the force that brought forth the ugliest renditions of the Tea Party years, which go back, of course, before Trump was about to run for president, really. And yeah, I do worry. You bet I worry. Absolutely, I worry. I've even heard people say smartly, and I'm one of them, that Trump was nothing compared to a DeSantis presidency. Trump isn't as smart as DeSantis.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that people need to think about here, is that, he is, in some way, this is really an understatement, but a goofball with a with an AK-47. DeSantis can think the thing through. He has the AK-47 too, but yeah, this is a completely different. I mean, DeSantis is not going to grab the wheel allegedly as he did of the car and say, "I want to lead the brigade into the Capitol." I mean, he's not that dingbat of a guy, DeSantis. So, yeah, no,
yeah,
I mean,
let me just add. I'm sorry. I'll just say that what we have to consider is that. Ask yourself this, because you brought it up in the last half hour, as I regularly would do, the Pelosi support for Cuellar. When the Republicans, when the Republicans decide they don't like somebody, they primary them and they get rid of them, right?
Right.
In the Democratic Party,
like Cantor as an example, right?
What do they do? They rally around someone who is vile on at least 3 counts. His position on on women's right to choose, his position on guns, and his position on fossil fuels. I mean, gee whiz, what does it take, okay, to show the Democrats that they're inviting disdain and mockery?
Yeah. John D. in the great state of Minnesota. Do you have a follow-up for Harvey? Otherwise, we're going to move on to Los Angeles and try to see if Tom is available.
Yeah.
John? Any
yes, I
follow-up.
Any comment on that? Yeah. Well, the Democrats keep on thinking, and wrongly, that there's this, middle of the road, centrist kind of party between this hideous fascist party, which they are. They're fascists. I mean, when they invite fascists to come speak at their conference, and everybody rallies around how you can just completely take over the government and rule by edict like Viktor Orban does in Hungary, and think that's just the neato decision, way of having a quote democracy under Republican rule. This party is off the rails. So there is no, I don't see a center. I think there's an extreme group or a large group of people that are just neglected. 35,000, 40,000, people who work for a living. And, in The Nation, there was an editorial done by Katrina Vanden Heuvel, the Democrats' working class deficit. And boy, do they have a deficit. And I'm old enough to remember when the Democrats, that's one of the things that they talked about, their working class, their working class. They mentioned them all the time, what the working class thought, what unions thought, was this acceptable, et cetera, et cetera. Well, yeah, that all changed with Jimmy Carter. And then after 1980, when we had this ideological takeover under neoliberalism, which it professed to. It was going to make all boats were going to rise. Well, that has not happened, and in fact, there's a bigger gap between the rich and poor. Yeah, and
right.
It's so politically, it's unfeasible, but except by force. And that's what the Republican Party's message is. We have to take over. We have to tell people how to think. We have to take over academia. We have to, tell them, sculpt the whole. It's a fascist a takeover.
Yeah,
what more can you say
it's
about
exactly
it?
that. I think you're spot on.
Yep.
Thank you, John. Great, great points. Harvey, I want to get your thoughts on that, and then I want to go to Tom. And again, the Democrats, and I'll mention this after your commentary, Harvey. But the Democrats need to realize that they cannot just win the hearts and minds of voters this November on the issues of gun safety, which is really important, on the issues of women's right to choose, which is also very important, on the issues of protecting gay marriage, all important. But if they don't start talking about economic bread and butter issues, the average person making $35K a year, which is the average American salary, and actually I would advise the Democratic Party to start using the language 35K, because people understand that, because that's what they make. And I think that if you don't do that, there could be some bad outcomes come the November elections. Harvey, go right ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've read some stuff the last few days that the Democrats may be a little better off in November than they were weeks ago, partly because inflation is apparently coming down. One. Two, the level of outrage amongst women regarding Roe v. Wade has led more and more women apparently just to make sure they're registered, which is also true apparently of their husbands, so that men may well be thinking twice about the Republicans. But it's also the case that for them to become a dynamic party, as opposed to a party that lives off of resistance, it really will require that economic, it's going to require that more than anything, because it really is the case that so far they're living off of, I call them Republican refugees. That is intellectually, on MSNBC.
And the Bushies,
and the suburbs. Basically, I mean, the suburban family people who were more than capable of voting Republican have been outraged. They were outraged by Trump, and now to some extent they feel threatened by this Republican Party, which really is, I mean, seriously speaking, by every measure, has just become an ugly, ugly Republican Party. And I don't mean physically ugly. I mean intellectually, politically, in every way.
I mean, they're going after FBI agents.
Yeah, but the Democrats have got. Look, somehow we've got to get it across to the Democrats what Henry Demarest Lloyd said many years ago, and what the finest small d Democrats have always appreciated, from Lincoln to Roosevelt, and that is, if you're going to defend the rights that were won by previous generations, it's not just a matter of defending them. You have to create new rights for your children, because democracy cannot stand still. Everyone thinks of capitalism. You have to do things because capitalism requires growth. Hell, democracy requires growth to survive and prosper. And for those of us who are citizens of that democracy to survive and prosper. I mean, we have the road back to a small d democratic future is going to be long, probably longer than I may even be around, because it's going to take decades to undo these decades.
That's not the case.
Okay, but it is the case.
I will say this though: younger people. I just was seeing something on Twitter. Just came across. More and more people protesting in front of Murray's office. More and more people protesting in front of Schumer's office. And the thing that I look at is that at some point, they're not going to continue to just take it. And they're going to take control of the party, and I'm hoping that they do so sooner than we go, as our gray hairs get longer. So
that's what they said about my generation. That's what they said about my
true.
Generation. But somehow along the line, my generation just got co-opted.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you're all guys
of the 70s.
The I and me generations of the 70s and 80s, exactly.
Well, we gave birth to those, perhaps.
Yes. Well, about did Billy Joel say? He's your generation, right? Didn't start the fire. So
they didn't start the fire, right?
Right on. See if Tom in Los Angeles is there. Tom, can you hear me? Okie dokie. So Tom is.
I guess my. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
This is from Francis Maxwell and John Favreau. This is what I'm trying to get at.
That's John Favreau of Hollywood or John Favreau of the Obama years?
Obama years.
Okay.
The pro-life Republican Party have now voted against the following: cheaper insulin, cheaper baby formula, health care for veterans, common sense gun control or gun safety, stop gas gouging, protecting gay marriage, access to contraception. Then the tagline is both sides are not the same. And that goes back to that falling down. You and me were the same, says Cedric Forrest, the great character actor in the movie, who's a lunatic, right-wing fascist himself with, going after, Jews and protecting Nazis and so forth. And he goes, you and me, to Michael Douglas's character, we're the same. And Michael Douglas says, no, we're not the same. You're a sick F you. And I just want to go home and see my wife. That's the difference between both of us. But I think that, we need to make it clear that, one party is corrupt, bought and paid for, Wall Street, pimping for Wall Street. And the other party has some very good elements of it, which were involved in that last, IRA bill. But it's got a lot of crumbs in it. And I'm being nice with that word because there are some people, like Cuellar, we just mentioned, and others, that are doing some horrific things to the party. And I think we need to balance that because of the threat that you and John D. from Florida, from Minnesota, were talking about. This to me is really, really concerning. And we need to make it clear that we do not stand for allowing Republicans to take control because, that'll flush out all the bad Democrats and all of a sudden open up, all these great Democrats to all of a sudden win in 2024. That's foolish thinking. That's the People Party thinking. That's the third party. That's extremist thinking. To me, that doesn't go anywhere. I got 40 seconds, Harvey, before we roll.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I think it's about time the Democrats did what LBJ did in 1964 with the countdown for nuclear war and the threat of a Goldwater presidency. It's time for the Democrats to start showing films of black shirts and brown shirts in the 1930s because you may not have to wear the black shirt or brown shirt, but these folks who are marching in Charlottesville, Virginia, have marched directly into the Republican Party. And what they seek to do is literally impose themselves upon us.
Well said. Professor Harvey Kaye, we'll talk to you next Friday, my friend. Enjoy New York if you're going. And
I'll be here for next Friday. Don't worry.
All right, very good. Well, we'll see you
Unless
then.
you want to get rid of me, that's okay.
No, not getting rid of you. No, you're going to stay here. Go Pack, go! We'll be right back. It's the Jeff Santos Show. Alan Grayson on deck. See you, Harvey.
Haul packages for a living? A gas-powered Mercedes-Benz Sprinter delivers. Transport people? A Sprinter van with 0% financing is a 5-star idea. If food delivery is your thing, then a gas Sprinter caters to you. And if you're a general contractor, the Sprinter with 0% financing nails it. With innovation, safety, and technology, Sprinter is built for you. And it's built for your bottom line with 0% financing. The Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, starting at just $33,790.
The Jeff Santos Show is brought to you by Mass Peace Action. With over 9,000 supporters in the state, MPA uses the power of grassroots organizing to end war, create a more just foreign policy, and cut wasteful Pentagon spending to support the needs of the American people, like healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the environment. 20 years of war is long enough. To become a member or learn more, visit masspeaceaction.org. Don't wish for peace, work for it.
I'm Rich Rosario. 1 in 4 heart attack survivors will have another cardiovascular event. Award-winning author and American Heart Association volunteer Dr. Nisa Goldberg explains the hidden risks.
Many people don't realize that managing hidden risks like untreated high blood pressure, unhealthy eating habits, and poor medication adherence may reduce your risk for having another heart attack.
The American Heart Association's Secondary Heart Attack Prevention Initiative, sponsored by Bayer, reminds you to follow your doctor's recommendations to help reduce your risk factors.
Take your medication as prescribed. Certain medicines like aspirin can lower your risk of another cardiac event. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. It's important to understand your medications and take them correctly. Manage risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Quit smoking, eat healthier, and get active.
Learn more ways to thrive after a heart attack at heart.org/oneisenough.
New coronavirus cases reported globally dropped nearly a quarter in the last week, while deaths fell 6%, but were still higher in parts of Asia.
The UN Health Agency said there were 5.4 million new COVID-19 cases reported last week, a decline of 24% from the previous week. Infections fell everywhere in the world, including by nearly 40% in Africa and Europe, and by a third in the Middle East. COVID deaths rose in the Western Pacific and Southeast Asia by 31% and 12% respectively, but fell or remained stable everywhere else. Roger Cantor reporting.
Violent thunderstorms and hurricane-force winds left at least 8 people dead in France and Italy on Thursday.
The storm produced gusts of more than 136 miles per hour in some areas, the National Weather Agency Meteo France said. About 45,000 households were without power on Corsica. Dozens of people were injured and 12 were hospitalized in Corsica, 1 in critical condition, authorities said. Libby St. James reporting.
Turkey's president and the UN chief met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Thursday in a high-stakes bid to ratchet down a war raging for nearly 6 months.
The gathering, held far from the front lines in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv, near the Polish border, marked the first visit to Ukraine by Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan since the outbreak of the war, and the second by UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Erdogan has positioned himself as a go-between in efforts to stop the fighting. Harry Michaels reporting.
Walmart, CVS, and Walgreens must pay a combined $650.6 million to 2 Ohio counties for damages related to the opioid crisis, a federal judge ruled this week.
U.S. District Judge Dan Aaron Polster ruled that over the next 15 years, approximately $306.2 million must be paid to Lake County and approximately $344.4 million must be paid to Trumbull County. All 3 companies were found liable for their role in the opioid epidemic in both Lake and Trumbull counties last November. Davis Richards reporting.
This is the latest news headlines. 2 former Pennsylvania judges who orchestrated a scheme to send children to for-profit jails in exchange for kickbacks were ordered to pay more than $200 million to hundreds of people they victimized in one of the worst judicial scandals in U.S. history. U.S. District Judge Christopher Connor awarded $106 million in compensatory damages and $100 million in punitive damages to nearly 300 people in a long-running civil lawsuit against the judges, writing the plaintiffs are the tragic human casualties of a scandal of epic proportions. Abortions in North Carolina are no longer legal after 20 weeks of pregnancy, a federal judge ruled Wednesday, eroding protections in one of the South's few remaining safe havens for reproductive freedom. U.S. District Judge William Osteen reinstated an unenforced 20-week abortion ban, with exceptions for urgent medical emergencies, after he said the June U.S. Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade erased the legal foundation for his 2019 ruling that placed an injunction on the 1973 state law. The former chief financial officer of the Trump Organization pleaded guilty Thursday to a 15-year tax fraud scheme, but he did not enter into a cooperation agreement to aid New York prosecutors in their criminal investigation of the real estate company's finances, a person familiar with the matter said. Under the terms of the agreement, Weisselberg would receive a 5-month prison sentence, but would serve about 100 days behind bars, the person said. Weisselberg faced up to 15 years in prison. A spacewalk was cut short just a few hours into what was intended to be a nearly 7-hour spacewalk after a Russian cosmonaut was repeatedly ordered to drop what he was working on and return to the International Space Station's airlock because...
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Lone Star Transfer. If you are a timeshare owner, getting out is probably a top priority. And now that annual maintenance fees are coming due, this ongoing burden and expense is at the top of your list. Thankfully, we can help. Let us do for you what we have done for thousands of others across the country. Our process is done legally, ethically, and quickly. Lone Star Transfer has a 99% success rate and an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. We are a family-owned business and will personally make sure your experience is a pleasant one. Don't let another day go by with maintenance fees taking your hard-earned money. Give us a call for a no-obligation consultation at 844-284-4863. That's 844-284-4863 or online at lonestartransfer.com. That's lonestartransfer.com.
Are you living with pain? I was, after a nasty fall. I got relief with 1 hour pain relief. I'm Barry Yarconi, president, and here's Lisa, a Marine who was injured in Iraq.
After surviving an explosion, I was on horrible painkillers for lingering head, shoulder, back, and knee pain, but I hated the dangers and side effects. My friend told me about 1 hour pain relief, and now I'm off the drugs.
1 hour pain relief is the result of 15 years of research on an amazing extract from hops, the plant used to flavor beer.
Whether your pain is from an injury or just aging, you get safe, all-day relief in less than 1 hour.
We're so sure you'll love 1 hour pain relief too that we'll send you a 1-week trial for just a small shipping charge. Call 800-269-9500 right now. That's 800-269-9500. There's no gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Stop living with pain. Call 800-269-9500 for your 1-week trial or visit onehourpainrelief.com. That's 800-269-9500.
Is the Jeff Santos Show on the Revolution Radio Network. Rebuilding America, together, investing, activism, and supporting the middle class. Now, here's Jeff.
It is hour 3 of the Jeff Santos Show. Welcome to it, folks. Coming to you live from the South Coast here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We are going to go south, talk to our next guest to the great state of Florida, where they certainly need great candidates like our next guest. He has represented Orlando in 2 different districts. If he wins the primary up on Tuesday, coming up next week, he will be in his 3rd district, which used to be part of his district before. It's crazy, but that's Florida politics for you. Just wait a second and it'll change. Our good friend, Representative Alan Grayson, joins us on the phone just a few days from Election Day. Alan, great to have you back, my friend. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you. Very good indeed. Well, you're a few days away from this election. I talked with our good friend Larry Cohen, former chair of the Sanders 2016 campaign, now chair of Our Revolution. And we're talking about crypto. And I said, oh, yes, we are going to be talking with Alan Grayson. He's facing a guy from crypto that this bankhead guy has, put a bunch of money into, 25-year-old guy with very little experience. This goes to the overall theory of what the hell are we doing in politics in America, where, crypto kings and others are laying the foundation for people with very little experience to be involved in office. And of course, we've done that with Republicans for the entire, last 30, 40 years. How difficult is it, Alan, because you've seen what it's like if you let Republicans run the gamut, from the 1990s to what we saw from the Tea Party in 2011 on. I just look at where we are today, and we need you badly, but the system, is just so corrupt and so frustratingly, full of, well, people like the crypto folks who are running around and, as Larry was saying, running from Hong Kong to, the Caribbean and so on and so forth. I just look at all this and I think, how frustrating is it for your viewpoint, to sort of get in there, start making a difference when you have so many obstacles in your road. Your thoughts?
Well, let me explain what happened in the situation that you're referring to, because I think it's shocking and you can boil it down to just a few sentences. So back in April, a crypto billionaire who operates out of the Bahamas and has testified before Congress in favor of deregulating cryptocurrency.
Right.
He set up a super PAC and put $14 million into it. 13 of his money and $1 million of a colleague of his who works for him. And basically allowed people to audition to be corrupted by it. They didn't designate at that point who the money would go to, but they publicized the fact that there was $14 million just sitting around waiting for people to beg for it. And one of my opponents in this primary, within 8 days, had formed a cryptocurrency advisory committee. He's a 25-year-old Uber driver, no experience whatsoever in anything related to cryptocurrency, didn't form an advisory committee on tax reform or on health care for all or on women's rights and the right to choice. No, he formed a cryptocurrency advisory committee, and one of the people on that committee whom he appointed very publicly had said that people like Sam Bankman, the person who put the money into the super PAC, need to use their abilities in order to persuade elected officials to do what's right for cryptocurrency. In other words, basically deregulate it. These are the kinds of people who populated this advisory committee, and he wasn't the only one, but he was a successful one. And just a few weeks after he appointed this cryptocurrency advisory committee, the super PAC made a $1 million commitment to support him, which they then executed on in the past month. They actually spent $1 billion in my race, more than all other money spent combined in my race.
Unreal.
By any other candidate, in order to boost this 25-year-old Uber driver who had demonstrated to them that he's bought and paid for. He was the most successful of all the people who put up their hands when Sam Bankman said, "Is there anybody out there who wants to be bought?"
Yeah,
and
this guy raised his hand right away.
Some people,
hey, me, look at me.
He immediately, look at me. Please corrupt me, please, I'm begging you, corrupt me. And that's what's happened in this race. And he immediately zoomed up. He was at 5% of the polls before this happened, and he immediately zoomed upward in the polls as a result of getting a $1 million boost to his campaign
from the crypto.
It's from this crypto super PAC, and he was asked about it this week, and he said, "I don't know anything about it." Bear in mind, this is somebody who
I know nothing.
Publicly
I see nothing.
No, he said, "I thought that money had something to do with pandemic prevention."
I see. Pandemic. Yes.
Yeah. So
boy, you got yourself a race and a half there, man.
Right, and I think you agree with me that it's actually far worse than you may have thought before this interview. That there's somebody who
it's
is
sad.
going out and trying to corrupt people. I mean, it used to be that you waited until you were elected before you were corrupted. Now you get elected by being corrupted.
Yeah.
That's how bad the system has become.
I mean, and this is what goes on, and this goes on in the Democratic Party. We don't even get into the other side. I mean, you got, what is that old Sonny and Cher, tramps, thieves, and
It's simply who will show the greatest fealty to Trump's lies. That's the whole game on the other side now. And on our side, it's who can most most convincingly persuade this kind of corrupting special interest that they will do whatever they're told.
Yeah, it's a sad situation. And we were talking with both Larry Cohen and Harvey Kay on before you, Alan, about what we have seen with the corporate wing of the Democratic Party. I mean, your former colleague, I believe he was there in the last 20 years, Cuellar, is number one in terms of being the only candidate and member of Congress who's both pro-life and pro-gun in a way. Number one after Uvalde as well, when it's just his district of San Antonio. Has got an A rating from the NRA. This is who Ms. Pelosi and other Democratic leaders, including Clyburn, campaigned for. You saw what happened to Andy Levin. Father was Sander Levin, a great congressman. Uncle Carl Levin, I used to interview as a senator from Michigan. Took him out. We had Nina Turner on yesterday. Saw how they kneecapped her twice in the last year and a half. I just look at this and I'm thinking, and I know you've been the victim of this too. I feel that all the ideas are with progressives. The future are with progressives. You see, today just alone, they're campaigning at Senator Murray's, protesting climate change activists at Senator Murray's office, as well as Senator Schumer's office. So I think the future of the party and the country, for that matter, is with young people. But between how you get them to there and how you get their vote to be that influential, and where we are right now, where a lot of Democrats are afraid, because the 30-second commercial is going to run against them. Yeah, they could run into the crypto king, as many of you and your colleagues who are people who are campaigning for this seat, are running into with this 25-year-old Uber driver. This makes you throw your hands in the air and saying, where are we in American democracy and so forth. Anyways, we could go on to that. Let me ask you this.
Well, let me respond to that for a minute, okay?
Go ahead.
The question is what do we do? What do we do in a situation like this? And here's our answer, okay? The election is on Tuesday, but nevertheless, since yesterday, we have been running Facebook ads and TV ads, and we sent out a mailer which arrived in people's mailboxes today that simply explained what I just said, that a cryptocurrency billionaire who lives in the Bahamas is trying to corrupt a local candidate who doesn't live in the district, by the way. He was parachuted in, right, in order to decide who represents Orlando in Congress. And it's a very simple thing that you can explain to people, and we'll see if that works. We'll see if once people understand the simple narrative that I just explained, whether they feel like voting for this guy because of these fake ads that they throw up on the air and spend $1 million on, or alternatively, they want somebody who's going to be loyal to them and to who has lived in the district for 17 years now, who actually has been the most effective member of Congress, passing more laws than anybody else, or do they want the cryptocurrency guy? And people, I think, will make the right decision. At least I'm hoping so. But the answer is to expose it. The answer is to expose it, explain it, appeal to the use whatever resources are available to appeal to the voters' sense of what's the right decision. And I'm not sure that in any of the races that you discussed that it was framed that way. I think that we're doing something that's a bold experiment. Right. I don't think that the focus of the Levin race was who's paying the other side's bills. And that was true, I think, in the Turner's races as well. Who is actually trying to buy the other candidate and why? And these are believe me, people understand this immediately. You explain to them that the system is corrupt, they say, "Oh yeah, hell yeah, it's corrupt. You're damn right, it's corrupt." And then that frames the choice for them.
Well, it does, and let me just say this, and I think this is an important piece of the puzzle. Our good friend Jerry Austin, you know him well, and so forth. Media Consulting on Tuesdays with our good friend David Paleologos on our election day, and he's done races, Caramels, Gibran, and so forth. And I think you phrased this pretty well. You know, he had a race when we worked together back in the 90s. I think it was Alan Dixon, another millionaire candidate. And you had one person, Dixon being the incumbent, and he said, the ad said, Dixon thinks he owns the seat. We'll call this guy, I think his name was Philman, he wants to buy the seat. And then there's Caramel Gibran, he wants to earn, she wants to earn the seat. And that's who you are. You want to earn the seat. You've done it before. This is your district. It's changed the numbers 14 times or whatever. But you want it. And the other guy wants to buy the seat, or buy the seat by our crypto friends. And and the other people think, because some of them have actually been in Congress before, they own the seat because it was was theirs for a number of years too. So there is some elements to that campaign commercial. But I think it's there. I mean, I hope people understand that you have a proven progressive voice who's willing to fight and not back down. Use our Tom Petty quote again from that great state of Florida, the late great Tom Petty. And that's what people need, not only in Florida but around the country. And Alan, I just hope you can prevail, because the people in Florida need you desperately, and the people in the country could use a great voice like yours in the U.S. Congress. So again, for those who would like to help you in the final days of the campaign, volunteer, give money, whatever the case is, website?
electgrayson.com.
electgrayson.com. That's the avenue to go. I want to take a couple of calls here as well. We'll go to John in Minneapolis in a second here at 833-545-JEFF. That's Jeff with a J. Of course, you can also email us, jeff@revolutionboston.com. Let's go to John in the great state of Minnesota. John, you are next with Alan Grayson. Go right ahead.
Yeah, well, I wish Alan, I wish you luck and victory. What more can I say? We certainly need more, very good politicians who are knowledgeable and really understand the issues, which I think probably pretty much describes very few in Congress. So, that will be a good thing if you win.
Oh, and somebody who I think also, I could add one thing, John, to that list, somebody will fight. I mean, the reason I say that is that there are some that will say, I'll vote for this, or I'll be backing this. But, somebody who's really going to go to the mat. And, that's why he set the record, of all these amendments, because he won't back down off of this. And Alan, that to me, that's who you are. And that's why the people of Florida will need you, because you're not going to back down on the fights, whether it's on healthcare, education, on the student loan issue, minimum wage, whatever it might be. And, and I think that separates you from anybody else in that race. You have a follow-up, John?
No, not really.
Okay. All right. Thank you, John. Alan, if you want to comment on that.
Lewis.
Go ahead.
Can I say something John Lewis once said about me? That I will never, ever let you down. Yes, that I'll never give up, give in, or give out. And I'm very proud that John Lewis said that about me. I think that goes to what you've been saying and what the caller has been saying. It's something that's important to me. And it's not just a question of fighting. It's also a question of winning, something that the Democratic Party seems to have forgotten how to do.
Yes.
I passed 121 laws in the House of Representatives when the Republicans were in charge. You think about how hard that is. Every single time I had to get enough Republican support in order to be able to get to 218 votes. And that's what's really missing right now from the Democratic Party. Not just fighting, but actually figuring out how to win, which the Republican Party does with alarming regularity.
No doubt. All right, let me ask you about this, because this actually is a good thing, but obviously it's not perfect by any stretch. And then how you talk about it is also, I think, critical. When you get the IRA bill, again, every time I think of it, I think of Jerry Adams, who I interviewed a few years ago in the Irish Republican Army, or I think about the individual retirement account. So the naming isn't great, but all right, Build Back Better wasn't my favorite either. I mean, but that being said, there were some great things on the environment, great things on the taxing the 1%, as Larry Cohn and I were talking about, and there is some hope here, on the climate change. But there's this side deal that Manchin had, and look, maybe they basically had to. Manchin said, well, unless you get money to my benefactors, oil and fossil fuel coal companies, you're not going to get the deal. So apparently that's what's the deal they cut. That being said, I think it's important. I'm glad it got done. That's an important win for the Democrats. But let's not just sit on our hands here and say, all right, well, everything is great. There's a lot of economic concerns in the American people today. The cost, we talk about it, even though inflation's getting back to sort of more normal settings, or the economy is getting better. I still believe that we need to have people take care of issues like healthcare costs, like education costs. I mean, and these are things that Bernie Sanders talked about in 16 and again in 20, and you've talked about over the past. Why is it that every country in the democratic world, anyways, first world nations, have universal health care, single payer type system like our friends in Canada do? Why is it that you can, you used to be able to go to school in California and New York City, for free? Ed Brown, Jerry Brown's father,
My father went to CCNY, the City College in New York.
Right, City College. Good friend Herb Boyd teaches there still, and now it's more expensive, like it is at UC Berkeley.
It was free for the 1820s.
Yeah,
it started free.
Yeah,
in the 1820s. 10 Nobel Prize winners. 10 Nobel Prize winners graduated from City College.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so all these things that I think that need to be done, and I think if you want to talk about messaging, I don't know if you have a comment on that in the final 2 minutes here of our segment, but to me, we got to start saying, this is just the beginning, folks. We are building on this, and this is just the beginning. And I think if you talk in that way, people will say, all right, this is good, but we need more. I will give you time, but you got to stay on this. And I think that's the message, rather than, hey, let's celebrate it, kumbaya, it's 1999, and we got to wait for Y2K and all that. Let's hold off the spiking of the ball in the end zone. I just feel that if you can continue to talk about those things, and again, the young people, we talked about the idea of young people really being the savior going forward, with climate change, and make it clear that we're not going to give just tax breaks out willy-nilly to the fossil fuel companies. And, we're not just going to stop at 10 prescription drugs. There's a lot more drugs than that people use every day. Your thoughts here in the final minute.
I think that there's a sort of undiscovered country, to use a term from Shakespeare, of things that, if framed properly, you could actually get wide agreement on. Not just in Congress, but throughout the whole country. One example of that is to expand Medicare to cover eyes, ears, and teeth, where I got 200 co-sponsors on that bill. Another example of that is to eliminate the double taxation of Social Security benefits. You pay taxes when you pay into the system, and then you pay taxes again when the system pays out to you. These are things that these are definitely progressive ideas, but they're not things that the Republicans are completely insensitive to. They like tax cuts, for instance. So there has to be an effort to actually figure out how to get to yes on progressive goals by overcoming the resistance of the Republicans, the sort of knee-jerk reaction that they make, and figuring out, as I did 121 times in 4 years, how to get to yes.
Well, it's important getting the yes. It's important to understand the need for progressive legislators who, again, can get things done like Grayson has done over his career in the United States House of Representatives. And that's why we hope And we send all of our support to you, Alan. Go get him on Tuesday, and that I think that will help propel you into Congress, as it's more of a Democratic district. It is incredibly important to see people like you, Alan. So I wish you the best. Again, it's important to see our good friend Alan Grayson. Check out his website, and appreciate you, man. All the best on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Grayson, right here on the Jeff Santos Show. I'm going to get him across the finish line. Do the right thing, Florida. We'll be right back. MTC's on deck. Seattle in the house. Back in the flash.
You don't have to wait for amazing deals on a new floor. Get spring Black Friday deals right now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring. This week, save up to 35% on gorgeous hardwood and waterproof vinyl floors. Plus, we can arrange for installation by professional, independent contractors. And with special financing, you can get started today. These are the floors homes are built on. Lumber Liquidators Flooring.
Haul packages for a living? A gas-powered Mercedes-Benz Sprinter delivers. Transport people? A Sprinter van with 0% financing is a 5-star idea. If food delivery is your thing, then a gas Sprinter caters to you. And if you're a general contractor, the Sprinter with 0% financing nails it. With innovation, safety, and technology, Sprinter is built for you. And it's built for your bottom line with 0% financing. The Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, starting at just $33,790.
So you want to go green? How about going green with your greenbacks? Try aspiration.com. Shares your values on the environment and climate change. Ever wonder what the big banks do with your deposits? Well, it goes to fossil fuel companies for sure. Not at aspiration.com. Your deposits will never fund fossil fuel projects like pipelines, oil rigs, and coal mines. With aspiration.com, you get 55,000 free in-network ATMs, 3 to 5% cash back on conscientious coalition purchases, personal impact score to help you shop to match your values, and an option to plant a tree with every roundup. Deposits in your Aspiration Spend and Save account are FDIC insured up to $2.46 million per deposit by being swept to FDIC member institutions. To find out more, you can go to aspiration.com/revolution.
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Lone Star Transfer. If you are a timeshare owner, getting out is probably a top priority. And now that annual maintenance fees are coming due, this ongoing burden and expense is at the top of your list. Thankfully, we can help. Let us do for you what we have done for thousands of others across the country. Our process is done legally, ethically, and quickly. Lone Star Transfer has a 99% success rate and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. We are a family-owned business and will personally make sure your experience is a pleasant one. Don't let another day go by with maintenance fees taking your hard-earned money. Give us a call for a no-obligation consultation at 844-284-4863. That's 844-284-4863. Or online at LoneStarTransfer.com. That's LoneStarTransfer.com.
Supporting the middle class. This is the Jeff Santos Show.
33 minutes past the hour. It is the Jeff Santos Show that you are tuned into. We are here every Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 Eastern Time, 12 to 3 Pacific. And, of course, you can check us out on Revolution Radio Network. You can listen there. You can also, of course, watch us on Facebook Live. Go to the search bar at Facebook Live and put in Jeff Santos Show, and you can view us in our Studio A here in the South Coast. We're going to be hopefully chatting with our good friend Mark Taylor Canfield in the next couple of minutes, hopefully, and maybe that is okay. Great. All right, now we have it magically. I said it, and here it is. Our next guest is the fantastic executive director of Democracy Watch News. He's also a great activist and a musician. He's the Renaissance man of the Jeff Santos Show. He is the great MTC, and he joins us from the great city of Seattle, WA. Hello, Mr. Mark Taylor Canfield. All right. Gotta love it, man. Hey, you know, we've been doing a lot of Sweet Home Chicago, so maybe we'll have to get
I'm taking the blues.
Play us out on that, you know. Why not?
I got my beautiful custom Jackson here, so I'm loving it. But it's nice to cool down. I got a chance to hang out on Lake Washington in my kayak and go to the Magnuson Pub, which is right there at Magnuson Park, you know, named after our former Senator Warren Magnuson. And it's, oh my gosh, it's some of the best beer in the world, Jeff. Like, we have to go there when you come to Seattle. We'll go right down to the water, and we can go out on a couple kayaks and mess around on the water, have a few beers there. It's a really great brewery, and I don't think you can buy their beer in any store. I think you literally have to go to that brew pub.
Oh, wow.
And then I also got to go out on the Salish Sea. Yeah, I got to go out on the Salish Sea on my kayak on the Puget Sound, and that's because our friend Dane Garfield Wilson, a DJ in town and former owner of the Rebar, a club that raised a lot of money for Bernie Sanders and the Our Revolution folks back in the day. He put on a free DJ party down on the waterfront in Seattle, and people were out there hula hooping and playing frisbee and kayaking and swimming, and it was great. So thanks a lot, Dane, and the Seattle Parks Department for putting that together. It was an amazing festival. And since we're not going to have Hemp Fest this year, which is our normal huge, 100,000 people show up, to support cannabis and have bands like, my band, the Galaxy Machine, played the main stage there. Awan Jones, who's opening for the Rolling Stones, played there. That's not happening this year. They couldn't get their act together because Expedia
permit-wise or something?
Expedia came here, put up their corporate headquarters, along with every other major corporation, and took a lot of the land that was normally set aside for that festival. So they're still negotiating now. So that's my report from Seattle. I'm sticking with it.
All right, man.
Anyway,
we're behind you. No. I mean, it's great stuff. I want to talk about what's happening at Senator Patty Murray's office. This climate issue is really, really big. We've been talking about it with all of our guests. We've had on, of course, Larry Cohen, Bernie Sanders chair in 2016, and now at Our Revolution, the chair there, and then, of course, Harvey Kaye, your friend and mine from Wisconsin, and great FDR author and so on. Economic Bill of Rights, 21st century version. Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, Alan Grayson was just on talking about crypto and all the money going into his Uber driver rival who, has no experience whatsoever and is in the race because he got $1 million from some crypto guy. It's just out of control. But, that's where we are. But the environment and this fossil fuel legislation, the side deal that part of the squad, Rashida Tlaib, is really annoyed with out of Michigan. And I think she's got a lot of the folks at the Sunrise Movement and a lot of other environmentalists really angry. And they're not backing down. They're protesting at Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's offices, as well as Senator Patty Murray. And, you're a senator from there in Washington State. so-called woman in the tennis shoes or whatever it was, running shoes, when she ran back in the 90s. Look, I think that, all power to these folks, that are out there protesting. And, we need to make it clear that we're not just going to give away American tax dollars to fossil fuel companies and, let them pollute their way to destroying this country and this planet. So all the power to those who are protesting today. Mark?
Yes, the soccer mom in tennis shoes is what they called Patty Murray when she became a U.S. Senator. Right. She was a more independent-minded candidate at that time. However, later she did vote for the war in Iraq, which has always been held against her by some folks in the state. There is this whole issue going on. There's also 350, which is a big group on some of these issues. 350 Seattle is very active. People have been involved like that, and other groups have been involved in the kayaktivism here against the Shell oil drilling platform when they brought it to Seattle. And so there's a long history of opposing the expanded use of fossil fuel and hopefully, eliminating fossil fuel. Seattle is a very bicycle-friendly town, and, electric scooter, electric bike, electric skateboard, or whatever you have. They try to put a lot of lanes through the city for that purpose, to keep people from using so much fossil fuel. Well, here we go. Joe Manchin once again stands in the way of some major change, and I don't know why he's always the person on our lips, but I'm tired of it.
He's always there, always there.
Yeah. So whatever you want to say about it, the folks in Seattle, at least 8 of them, decided to go to Patty Murray's office here in Seattle and do a peaceful sit-in. Note that I used the word peaceful. It was very peaceful.
Yes, very much so. What I say at the end of my show.
Yes, and it was there at Patty Murray's office, which is not far from where I live. I'm in the studio now at an undisclosed location, which is somewhere near the Space Needle. But I definitely wanted to cover this, and I did get word from an activist who trusted me, not to spill the beans ahead of time or something, to go down there. So it's been another activist moment in Seattle. They have their own press behind them and are pushing this narrative too, which I think is smart. They've learned that from the mainstream conservative press. So they made a statement. They were chanting. They definitely wanted to call attention to the compromise, and they don't think that it's acceptable. There's a lot. They delivered a letter to Senator Murray's staff, and they asked that Murray commit to opposing Manchin's proposal. And when they didn't get that commitment, 8 activists with a group, which is also a hashtag on Twitter, People versus Fossil Fuels, 8 activists from that coalition staged a peaceful sit-in and held a banner. And that banner said, "Senator Murray, stop fossil fuels, no fast-track deal for pipelines." So what it is this side deal that they've made with Manchin, that's really causing the problem. It has to do with the pipelines. So the police showed up and told them that they had to leave. They were given a trespass warning. They were asked to leave by the staff of Senator Murray's office. They refused to leave, and all 8 of them were arrested. I'm happy to say that they are all currently released. However, they are being charged for this act of civil disobedience. And a lot of activists and coalition members also rallied outside the federal building, the Jackson Federal Building, named after a former
Scoop Jackson.
Our former Congressman Henry Jackson. So dozens of activists there were chanting, and they were holding signs reading things like "No fast track deal for pipelines," "No permit deal for big oil," and "Don't sacrifice communities to big oil." So this is the message that these groups want to get out. And one of the official statements from this coalition said that, quote, "The proposal from Senator Manchin is nothing more than a wish list from big oil, whose only goal is more profit at the expense of people and the planet. And that came from Thomas Meyer, who's the national organizing manager with a group called Food and Water Watch, which covered this today very well and provided us with a lot of good information.
Well, we were talking to Larry Cohen. He mentioned Food and Water Watch, as well as 350.org, and on top of that, the folks at Sunrise, and these groups, these organizations, and there are probably others too. They are critical to the future, man, and we need to really harvest these folks and make them rise even larger in every city in this country, because we can't afford to have fossil fuel companies ruin and destroy this planet as they have been doing for a number of years now. Talking with our good friend Mark Taylor Canfield here on the Jeff Santos Show. And Mark, we were talking again with Larry Cohen, and I mentioned you because we've talked about this many times. Larry actually lived in New Jersey. He's from Philadelphia originally. He currently lives in the D.C. metro area now, and chair of our revolution there in D.C., where they're kind of headquartered. He was very close at one time to Bruce Springsteen, and he said, "Look, if you want to be," because we talked a lot about who will be the candidate in 24. If you want to choose somebody, I would nominate Bruce Springsteen for president. And in 2024, he says, "You probably won't do it, but that's my pick. He's perfect. He's ideal." I said, my good friend Mark Taylor Canfield will be on later at 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific time. He and I have been talking a lot about Eddie Vedder. So if Springsteen doesn't want to do it, I will raise my hand and nominate Mr. Vedder, because I think he has demonstrated on a lot of issues, including the issue of Ticketmaster and many others. And I would love to see him, throw his hat in the ring. Dave Grohl too. But to me, there are musicians, pointing to yourself as an activist, as somebody who's a reporter, the music and sometimes feed the soul that we get with these empty vessels who happen to be in Congress. So I don't know what you thought about that, and I don't know if Vedder is interested, but to me, there are some folks that have demonstrated political awareness and the willingness to go out and fight for certain political issues. Neil Young is Canadian. I don't know if he's changed American since he was born in Canada. Maybe he's got an American citizenship at this point. Who knows? But, I think it's important for these folks to get involved, because, if we end up with more and more people, who represent just Wall Street, and we won't take on, the Wall Street, won't take on the fossil fuel companies, won't take on the military industrial complex, people are just not going to show up to vote. It's not that they're going to go vote for Trump or the right wing. They're just not going to show up. Majority of people don't vote as it is. Your thoughts, Mark? Eddie Vedder, Dave Grohl, what do you think?
I think that Eddie Vedder, if you've ever met him, you find that he's a very shy person when he's not on stage, which is hard to believe, but he's not the only artist or rock singer that I've met who's like that.
That's true.
Yeah. So he's very soft-spoken. However, he is activist-oriented, and he did do some music for Ralph Nader when Ralph Nader was running for president, I believe, on the Green Party ticket.
Yeah.
So he, that's the first time I met him, and I thought it was great. He got up there with his ukulele and sang a song about Bill Gates and about rich people and soulless rich people or whatever. And I thought, wow, I have a song like that too. We should talk about that, because that's a theme I think that you see with a lot of musicians. They're able to give you some pretty cutting social commentary. And this thing that you carry in your wallet called an artistic license is really cool, because it gives you cover in ways that a lot of times you don't have as either an activist, a political person, or even journalist. So my artistic license is written on the back of a napkin, and it says that basically Mark Taylor Canfield has the right to say and do just about anything in the name of art, that as long as he doesn't harm himself and other people. So, right. And that's where the
back of a napkin. Okay.
What is harmful for Eddie Vedder? But when he got out on the global stage, when they had those series of concerts, a lot of them were held in the Anaheim Stadium down there, and he got up on stage, first live show after the economic shutdown. He got up on the stage, and the first thing he said was, if these pharmaceutical companies want to be the heroes, give it away for free, give it away for free, give all the vaccines away for free. So he was right there in front on that major issue. And I do remember Pearl Jam tweeting about that. They had a tour scheduled right when the pandemic hit, and they were very critical of the government's initial reaction and response, because they could get no information about whether the tour was going to be safe or not. So out of safety's sake, they canceled it, which turned out to be, obviously the right move. Now they're doing a world tour. Dave Grohl, I think, he probably has more of the stomach for it. I mean, he wrote a book.
Yeah.
He
definitely does.
He speaks out a lot. He's always going after Reverend Phelps there in Kansas, the anti-gay congregation. And so, singing Bee Gees songs to them from a flatbed truck or whatever. But I think there would be a wide acceptance for artists. I've hesitated in the past to talk like that, because that's, if it's the entertainment industry, I mean, that's how we got Ronald Reagan, which started this whole mess. So
right.
I think we should be careful.
Yeah, no, I mean, from him to Trump, there's a great circle there.
Probably
they're very good at lying. They're very good at BS. That gets them across the finish line. Oh, I saw him on TV. Yeah, Bozo the Clown, or whatever he was.
You know what,
Ronald
Jeff?
Reagan, so
let me ask you a question. Would you vote for George Clooney?
Yes.
I mean,
he's swayed a little bit to the world of big money Hollywood, because he is part of big money. But no, I definitely think that he is, has the right tools. I mean, some of his movies that he's made, the great one in Edward R. Murrow, the Respect There, and a few other movies on the Middle East and foreign policy, prove that, he gets it. The question is,
who my favorite would be? My choice, my number one choice would be Denzel Washington.
Oh yeah, well,
he demands so much respect. Or
can you imagine? We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us as one of the taglines. I mean, that would be fabulous. No. I mean, these would be great candidates. And look, I mean, the artistic community, really needs to kind of step into the political community, because a lot of these folks have become robotic. They say the same thing. Well, we're pro-choice, we're pro LGBTQ rights, we're for economic equality, and okay, but
I would say this
give me something.
We need more pro-democracy statements from musicians, for sure.
Yes.
In Russia, bands like Pussy Riot have no choice but to speak out. I know that Mono and U2 felt that way during, the so-called Troubles in Ireland,
right?
Which is basically part of Civil
Bloody
War.
Sunday, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So they felt compelled because they were moved. The same reason that I wrote a song about the Seattle protest, Black Lives Matter protests, called "Tear Gas in Seattle." I think it's like, "Tear gas in Seattle. It's just another day." It's just another day in Seattle for us to have major confrontations with a corrupt police department, and so I had to write about that. And the same thing, I think people like Bruce Springsteen and, I don't know if we'll ever see the guys in Kiss become political, because they're all about glam and makeup. But
I mean, Gene
I've
Simmons,
tried to call out Gene Simmons a few times through Twitter and say, "Hey, what do you think about a benefit concert for the victims of gun violence?" But no response. He's out on tour right now, having a great time.
I don't see him. I think Stanley probably is more progressive than he is, anyways. Gene Simmons is more of a moneymaker, and was always that way when the more folk singers of the 70s were doing their thing, and he was out there party all night, party all day kind of thing, if you remember that.
I would be afraid to have Gene Simmons as president of the United States. It would be a party all day and all night. When I ran sort of a joke candidacy for president, I said the first thing I would do would be build the largest sound system the world's ever seen at the White House. I think Gene Simmons would probably do the same thing. But wouldn't that be great? My inaugural party would have bands, and it would be Pearl Jam, of course, but also Alice Cooper, right?
All right.
Ann Wilson, Nancy Wilson from Heart, Kim Thale from Soundgarden, Shayna Shepherd, the Black Tones with Eva and Cedric Walker. They would be playing that night, and I would invite you two as well, of course.
Oh, please.
And we would all be sitting on the top
too.
of the White House, listening to Freddie Mercury songs or something. We are the champions, my friend.
Oh yes.
Maybe we finally get this country back from all these corporate bigwigs. Just don't care
taking it back.
What's happening.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's real. I mean, in fact, if you remember that Live Aid video tribute, one of the things, I don't know if they actually put this in the film, about Freddie Mercury and so forth, but in the live thing, he did the whole thing about Radio Gaga, Radio Goo Goo, the whole kind of things today. And as I was talking about earlier this today, on the Today Show, they had on, Panic at the Disco Band, which, remind me a lot of, 1950s, 1970s sort of, typical, bubblegum bands. And, I don't know, I've never really have known much about them, but to me, it is so important to get musicians to take it seriously and to understand that they have a role to play in our society. To me, it's so vitally important to have that. And I'm hoping that, that somebody, whether it's Vedder or it's, a Grohl or whomever, takes the next step, even if they throw all their weight behind somebody, who is a champion on the environment or a champion on healthcare issues and so forth. To me, this has to be done. So I'm hoping.
Well, if you want to bring young people into your movement, then other than Bernie Sanders, I don't know who else you can bring in. Of course, the Ilhan Omars and AOCs and Pramila Jayapals, but Shama Swans. But how about some musicians? How about getting them involved in the political campaigns? And then you'll see kids showing up to the campaign speeches and parties because there's going to be great music. I mean, that's something that I used to do more often. I haven't for a while, but my band actually played a fundraiser for Congressman Jim McDermott, and that was fun. I mean, it was a mix of politics and music, but he was such a laid-back, easygoing, friendly guy. Still is,
Right.
So I had a good time. We all enjoyed it. He enjoyed it. He hung out and talked to the band for a while, and then he remembered that.
Got
Like the
30
next time I
seconds,
saw
man.
him, after that, he remembered that show. But yeah, I think musicians should be out there involved in the community, and being involved in the community also means being political. And in the case of Seattle, we saw that with saving the Showbox Theater. Oh, by the
That's
way,
right. Hey, Mark,
check me out at Democracy
get a run.
News. Okay, check me out on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel. I love you guys. Take care, Jeff. Have a great weekend. Keep
Peace,
rocking.
man. Hey, I want to remind everybody, Sunday, Mark Taylor Canfield, fantastic. Wish you could be here on Sunday, 1 o'clock. Cambridge, Harvard Square, Bernie Sanders, Sarah Nelson, and Sean O'Brien of the Teamsters. I'll be there. Hope you are too. Until Monday, thank you, Freddie Santori and the gang in Boca. My name is Jeff Santos, and I gotta go. Happy weekend.
Peace Action. With over 9,000 supporters in the state, MPA uses the power of grassroots organizing to end war, create a more just foreign policy, and cut wasteful Pentagon spending to support the needs of the American people, like healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the environment. 20 years of war is long enough. To become a member or learn more, visit masspeaceaction.org. Don't wish for peace, work for it.
You don't have to wait for amazing deals on a new floor. Get spring Black Friday deals right now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring. This week, save up to 35% on gorgeous hardwood and waterproof vinyl floors. Plus, we can arrange for installation by professional, independent contractors. And with special financing, you can get started today. These are the floors homes are built on. Lumber Liquidators Flooring.
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Lone Star Transfer. If you are a timeshare owner, getting out is probably a top priority. And now that annual maintenance fees are coming due, this ongoing burden and expense is at the top of your list. Thankfully, we can help. Let us do for you what we have done for thousands of others across the country. Our process is done legally, ethically, and quickly. Lone Star Transfer has a 99% success rate and an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. We are a family-owned business and will personally make sure your experience is a pleasant one. Don't let another day go by with maintenance fees taking your hard-earned money. Give us a call for a no-obligation consultation at 844-284-4863. That's 844-284-4863. Or online at lonestartransfer.com. That's lonestartransfer.com.